No sugarcoat. Episode 27's on the run. Pure madness blazing. Headlines weigh a ton. Ice in the chatter. Lemon in cuffs. What fun. First Amendment? Yeah, we're calling this one. Groundhog stats with Enton on the screen. Boom, boom. Iguanas dropping. Kids marching. Bass goes boom. Target getting targeted. Left side zoom. Chaos in the room. Files and gates. Ballots. Scandal breeze. Iran whispers. Manila heat. Bills that make you wheeze. Artemis calling. Moonlit memories. Countdown please. Robots rolling. Snowblowers. Drones that zoom. ChatGPT cravings. Click. Boom boom. Stick around. Rails are gone. We're taking you through the room.
Brace yourself. Tech, politics, health, it's all here. Join millions shocked by the YoJo Show's unfiltered truths. Smash that subscribe button now and blow your mind.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the YoJo Show podcast. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Heart's beating, lungs working. How you doing, Joe?
It's good to see you again. I'm really excited for this one.
Just getting it all together and getting ready to start. I think that we've been really busy with the last few episodes. It's February already. It's hard to believe.
Who would have believed? Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's getting ready for the Super Bowl, which they'll be watching today, as a matter of fact. And we'll see how that turns out. But there's actually a competing halftime show. We'll see which one gets better ratings. Turning Point USA is doing their halftime show to counter the Bad Bunny, somewhat woke halftime show. Interestingly, Bad Bunny's Puerto Rican, and the Puerto Ricans I know all hate him. It's just very interesting. It doesn't seem like he's very well liked over there. But that's because he has an anti-America, hate America, America's bad sort of message, and a lot of people.
Of course, they were chosen for the halftime.
Of course, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Just to alienate half the crowd, I'm going to say, "Go Patriots! Go Patriots!"
Right. Yeah. Listen, I think the best part of it is that it's a big event. Some people just come to watch the commercials.
Yeah. I always watch the commercials. That's for sure. It's the most exciting part for me.
But that being said, it dates back to the Romans. People like going to the Colosseum and seeing an event.
Your favorite team versus your enemy team.
Yeah, athleticism and sportsmanship and all this other stuff. I think it's very patriotic. A lot of people here in America, we obviously love that too. Just they do in other countries their own sports.
I saw the practice flyover. Did you see the U.S. Navy and U.S. Air Force had the practice flyover? That was really exciting to watch as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be badass. I think it'll be terrific. It just unfortunately, if they could just focus on sports and less on politics and other stuff and sideline.
Although there is a small chance that Trump is going to use that as a diversion while the Americans are distracted and bomb Iran. I was thinking that might have started a little earlier, but it seems like they may give peace a little bit more of a chance. So maybe it'll take a week or two break. But there is a chance that Trump is going to try and get that done while everybody's distracted with the Super Bowl. Slim though. Now.
Yeah, and listen, we'll talk about Iran and we'll cover the ongoings in the world. But yeah, it does seem like there's some sort of path forward based on the last meetings just in the last few days with Iran's leaders. So we'll see. And we'll see.
I mean, it's just we're negotiating to negotiate, which is what they love doing. They basically said the U.S. came and said, "Hey, here are demands. Let's negotiate." And the Iranians were like, "We won't actually meet you. We will shake your hands, but we won't meet you. We'll meet the Omanis who will talk to you. And then we'll set the terms for which we will discuss. We will talk about talking," which is what they love doing. Yeah, always like anytime there was like a peace accords between Israel and the Palestinians, it was always like the Israelis would come and the Palestinians was like, "What concessions are you going to give us in order for us to come to the table, in order for us to think about talking to you? And then when we come to the table, we'll negotiate about negotiating." It's just like a stall tactic. But I wonder if Trump is going to let it play out or he's going to give the hammer to their head again, like he did.
Time will tell. There's no shortage of military might that's actually in the region right now.
Hell yeah.
And we have a lot to cover, but we'll obviously be touching on that. And I guess to kick things off for this episode 27, let's start with an intro video that just takes a bit of this and a bit of that of the things that are going on. You ready for that?
I'm excited.
Let's go.
It is my job this February 2 to look to the skies and report back to you that there is a shadow here on my ground. 6 more weeks of winter abound.
All right, full disclosure, there's almost no story that I disdain more than Groundhog Day, maybe the lottery. I think it's usually an insult to our intelligence and a waste of our time. However, Today is the singular exception because we have a groundbreaking way to look at these rodents and what they're saying. With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton. All right, Harold. I don't even I hate it so much. I don't even know if it sees a shadow, if it's winter or not. I mean, I don't even know what that means.
You see the shadow? That means 6 more weeks of winter. And you know, there's this whole idea of Puxatawny Phil. It turns out there are a ton of rodents out there who are predicting the winter or the spring. And what are we talking about here? Groundhog calls for an early spring. Look at this. We got Staten Island Chuck here in New York. No. We've got General Beauregard Lee down in the great state of Georgia. He says no. How about Puxatawny Phil, of course, the most famous? He says no. Later today, we will, in fact, get Groundhog Sam Champion out on Long Island, and we will also have Groundhog Harry, my namesake, that's actually Harold Ramis, out in Chicago, Illinois. So the bottom line is this: the rodents are in fact united on this. We are going to see 6 more weeks of winter, according to at least these rodents.
You know, it's actually
okay, so I think Puxatawny Phil has been getting away with groundhog murder. But why do I say that? Why do I say that? It turns out his prediction, his accuracy rate, ain't too hot to trot. Get this, groundhog forecast accuracy rate, Puxatawny Phil, just 35%. It turns out that the 2 best groundhogs, if you're interested in predicting whether or not we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter, are General Beauregard Lee down in the great state of Georgia. And of course, Staten Island Chuck is actually number 1. 85% of the time he is correctly forecasted whether or not we get 6 more weeks of winter. And of course, at this point, he says that in fact we are not going to get an early spring, therefore 6 more weeks of winter.
There's smoke grenades that initially came out. I know the smell of smoke. Not sure what just happened there. But you guys can see the amount of crap.
Guys, it is 30 degrees Fahrenheit down here in South Florida, and that means iguanas are falling out of the trees. In just a couple hours, we caught over 100 iguanas. These right here are giant males, and as you can see, this one
Oh boy, Groundhog Day. So it seems that Staten Island's...
Our international listeners, it's referencing the Groundhog Day movie, which is actually a really great movie. The tradition is a little more wacky than the movie, which is, I think it's based off of.
No, the movie is based off the tradition of the groundhog. That's an old thing. And in fact, Canada's got its groundhog, has groundhogs up there too. They're probably the most famous of the rodents. They're marmots, and they do actually hibernate. So the idea is that when they come out now this time of year, the question is if they see their shadow, it's going to determine, based on lore, whether or not the winter will continue for another 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, but it looks like the groundhog in Staten Island is actually a pretty good meteorologist or predictor of winter, because 85% accuracy, that's better than most weather forecasters.
Yeah, that is. I noticed that his glove fell off by the second half. Did you realize that?
I've never seen him with mitts and all that stuff going on.
It was for the groundhog because the winter is staying.
Exactly. Yeah, so we've had some pretty horrific weather. In fact, when we recorded the last episode, there was a big storm hitting the northeast, and there's been a lot of cold weather.
And Texas too.
A lot of people without power, major accidents with over 20 vehicles on the highways, and all kinds of stuff. I feel bad for places that are relying on solar or turbine wind energy, because it's, you're talking coal and fossil fuels saving people's homes from freezing over. Ultimately, this too shall pass. Spring will come. In the meantime, it's also, and the ice will melt. But speaking of ice, you did see obviously some more armored vehicles going down the streets, and the response that are still happening in some cities. We obviously have some ways to go as far as resolving that. So much so, we even have a clip there with the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, marching in an anti-ICE parade, which is, again, there's an issue with that. It's okay to protest or voice things, but essentially,
supposed to represent the city, who's supposed to help the ICE detain and arrest and get rid of these people who are here illegally and who are criminals.
Yeah, listen, I think the level-headed argument would be that people are complaining and protesting against some of the things that have happened or some of the tactics, really, the methodology, the tactics. However, when you protest broadly like that, it's protesting against the people that are trying to liberate Europe during World War II. It's like you're missing the point. Yeah. And when you partake in these protests, you're also giving you don't have a little asterisk next to the anti-ICE, you just basically say anti-ICE, we don't want ICE here, then you're saying, wait a minute. So does that mean that you want the people who are committing atrocious crimes and that are doing all this stuff to remain? That's who you're supporting by being in these protests. That's the issue I have. It's that it's not a targeted sort of protest. It's a protest saying that's it. It's like when they had the defund the police in 2020. That was the whole big movement then. And this is an incarnation of that. Defund the police. Now they're saying defund ICE.
Basically, anti-Trump protests in reality. It's the same as the no-king protests, just new terminology. It's any people who think that Trump and anything he does is fascist will be out protesting anything that he does. Again, they would say that they're not criminals. Maybe the criminals should go. Are good people. Blah blah blah. And
but they are really going. That's the whole thing. But they are. That's the whole thing. The vast majority. It's like saying, you know what, we don't want cars on the street because there's a few accidents. There's literally thousands of people being injured and killed with car accidents, but it's for the greater good. There's a tiny percentage. Millions of people have actually been removed from the United States in this past year. So the question is, what are we really saying? If you say it correctly and say, look, if they should say improve ICE, make it better, or whatever, that'd be a different protest. But to basically say they don't want ICE and to defund ICE, and ICE shouldn't be on the streets. And when you hear Mayor Frye out of Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz out of Minnesota, basically saying Mayor Frye in Minneapolis has not done a great job with his police to do the things that need to be done. And in the state of Minnesota, they haven't either. So that's why there's such a presence of federal enforcement over there. It's not because things are being done correctly. And they're saying, we don't need them. Obviously you do. And they're all over the country, these federal agents. And we don't have these problems, but in a couple of places. California had issues. Minneapolis and more broadly in Minnesota, there are issues. Why is that? Florida and
Texas, which enforce the borders somewhat, or as much as they can, are having much less of, and they cooperate with ICE. When ICE has any request, then the issues are gone. So this is almost like we were talking about in the last episode. This is definitely something that's stirred up and organized and professional protest, essentially, mostly.
Oh yeah.
Although
a lot of people that are leading, it's like the BLM riots in 2020. Okay, there was a small percentage of people that were organizing massive crowds of people who thought they were doing a good thing, but then all of a sudden they were part of something that was burning down buildings, destroying cars. It was just like endless. It was rioting. And not everyone that was in these things were there for that. They were there because they had a message they wanted to give. The thing is, the organizers of these things know how to rope in nice people who are trying to be partaking in something. Plus, the other thing that I think that these organizers realize is that it's human nature. We have a tribal sort of mentality, just like dogs typically are pack animals. People want to be part of
Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. And when you hear why do people support sports teams as groups, people want to be part of a group. It's hardwired into how most people are. There's not everyone. And in fact, there's some interesting studies that show the difference between people that are into sports heavily and then the ones that really aren't. And there are some differences. They have to do a lot with this sort of drive to be part of a bigger group. And when you hear the interviews, a lot of times the regular people on the street that are at these protests, and you ask them what they're doing, a number of them just admit, we're just here for the cause. You know what the cause is? Not really. They just want to be part of something. It's like a social event. So, and that's the issue, that people are being put in harm's way by just trying to do what they think is something helpful. And there may be obviously a positive message in there that is being drowned out by the violence and all these other things that are happening. And we'll talk a little more about this as the episode progresses. But did you catch? I don't know if you saw the guy in the wheelchair that just got up.
Yeah, I definitely caught that. That was very surprising.
So look, it's possible that maybe this person is disabled and can't walk large distances.
True.
But the way that he jumped out of that wheelchair, picked the thing up, and jumped right back in.
And it's also one of those motorized wheelchairs.
No, this is a high-end motorized, very specialized wheelchair. So maybe boarded for the day. I don't know. It just looks suspicious.
Funded by the government, because most of those are.
That clip did circulate around. People are like, "What did we just see?" It's suspicious. It may be benign, but it's suspicious. And then you saw the iguanas. Obviously, we put up.
I'm gonna ask you if any iguanas fell on your head, as you do live in Florida.
So none fell on my head. I've had.
I was hoping for some raining iguanas
all around the neighborhood, though. And we did put up a song that we wrote about the falling iguanas. So we'll put a link in the description to the song that we did and the piece on that. There's been thousands, literally thousands of these iguanas have been collected up while they're dormant. They're not quite, they say they're freezing, but they're not really frozen. But they basically, because they're cold-blooded, they basically just go to sleep. It's probably the easiest way to describe it. And because they're invasive, they're not native to Florida, and they are very damaging to crops and so forth. The Fish and Wildlife Agency here in Florida actually allowed that these things be collected and turned into the agency for humane euthanization. Or if the person would euthanize them humanely, they could literally use them and eat them. There's actually a restaurant out of Tampa that was all over the news because a guy brought in iguana and they did an iguana meat pizza, which apparently the guy being interviewed said that it tastes like frog's legs. But you could do that.
So the famous French delicacy. It's
the frog's legs, not the iguanas. Although I was told that in Trinidad, it's a staple over there too for some people. There's nothing wrong with eating it. It's an animal. It's an iguana.
Probably the tail, like an alligator tail, is delicious, right? So
so what they used on the pizza was apparently the tail. But so again, the thing is not to be mean to them or cruel to them, but they are normally you would need a permit to basically take them and remove them and send them somewhere. But the requirements were suspended. And yet with just a couple of thousand or several thousand being actually captured and turned in, it's the drop in the bucket. There's a belief that there's literally hundreds of thousands, if not more, here in the state, and they don't really belong here. But there's a lot of stuff online, and we'll put the link to the video that we did with the song.
They probably rounded up more iguanas during this freeze than they do all the rest of the year combined.
Yeah, that is true. It's almost insignificant. And then,
interestingly, these iguanas, invasive, you mentioned, they were people's pets, and people just released them. Oh, they could just live in the Everglades, out in the backyards.
Yeah, we have the same problem with pythons. They're not native here. And then we have
huge problem.
Nile crocodiles here apparently now. So those are also another.
So the crocodiles are invasive as well? I didn't know that.
No, Nile crocodiles. We do have the American, we have the American alligator, we have our crocodiles. We're actually one of the only states, a couple of states that has both alligators and crocodiles. But again, there's people releasing other animals, and because of our temperatures down here, a lot of these
everything
can survive, and then they start thriving and throw everything off. That's just the way it is, and we got to deal with it. And this was just an interesting thing, and people are just that are not accustomed to this and catch this on the news can't understand why people are talking about iguanas raining from the skies. It's because they're on the tree and it get too cold and they just literally fall right off the tree. You don't want one of these big ones falling on your head. They can
be heavy. Yeah,
as you can see, they get pretty massive.
And it's actually really cool. I think I was once by my brother or something, and he had a mango tree. They'd love to hang out on that mango tree and eat those mangoes. But when you'd walk towards the tree, they'd get afraid and they'd start running and jumping off because the lake was right there. So it's really beautiful because you walk and you're just walking towards the tree, and suddenly it's just they're like shooting off the tree, and they could be really big and they fly pretty far when they jump, and then they go right into the water and swim away. And it's just really
one of their defense mechanisms is to go underwater. So if a predator's trying to catch them, they'll go into a lake, into a swimming pool.
Which is the reason why they love Florida so much.
Yeah, and they'll also use that to stay warm because they can get some more warmth out of the pool. So they'll go into people's swimming pools. Very common thing, and they don't want to get out of there until they're ready. They hold their breaths for extended periods of times, apparently some 30 minutes or longer, depending how active they are when they're down there. But they just go down the bottom and then just stay quiet. So again, it is what it is. That is this time of year, and we don't usually have cold spells lasting very long, or that are cold enough that you usually got to be under 40 degrees for them to start really literally falling
Yeah.
Well, for it to be raining iguanas, but we've had temperatures this year that are that cold. And speaking of frozen and ice again, there was part of that clip also had these kids. So that's been this thing. We'll have another clip in a little bit, but ultimately we've had school kids all across the country going out and doing ice protests. They've been just not showing up to class. They've been going on the streets. And that one actually shows a certain amount of violence. They're throwing stuff at vehicles. They're blocking traffic. Again, you don't see that.
And actually, you're only supposed to get political in university. These are like high school kids, right?
We're preparing them. Yeah, we're preparing middle school, high school. We're preparing them to do the river to the sea chant with Free Palestine. This is like the beginning, the initial training 101 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But regardless, we'll cover that a little more. But listen, I don't have anything against people protesting. It just do it and they'll be violent. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And then speaking of people targeting things, so part of the clip
targeting
also
Target. I noticed.
Yeah, they're targeting Target. So Target, which has headquarters in Minneapolis, Minnesota, people are up in arms because vehicles from the federal agencies, including ICE, have been seen congregating, stopping, being at the Target stores, parked outside the staging area, going inside, maybe go to the bathroom or get a cup of coffee. And they're like, we shouldn't allow this, can't happen. So they've been repeatedly going into the Target headquarters, trying to meet with the CEO, which seems to.
And this is the Target store that's probably beneath the Target headquarters, right?
Yeah, so that was just one of the stores. So they're doing that at the different stores, but they also have other events where they go literally into the lobby of the headquarters, and the CEO always happens to not be there. They can't meet with him, but ultimately, like a little crazy that people are doing all this. They're disrupting that business, and the problem is that you have places like Minneapolis with crime and so forth that are having enough problems keeping retailers that are thinking of shuttering stores. Like we've seen Walmart close stores across the country in some of these cities because of the violence and everything. Don't go and hurt the businesses because it's just they're saying we're forcing big corporate America. Yeah, you're also hurting the workers.
This was one of at least the most liberal companies in America in terms of being open to a lot of the woke ideology and promoting some of these stuff.
Yeah, it's almost ironic. Be careful. It's like the one place that was ultra woke, which was them. I don't even think they had a boy and girls department anymore at one point. It was just a unknown sort of
children's
department that they just bought into everything. This came back to bite them. But the people that they did all of that for, rebranded, did everything for.
Always works like that. It always works like that. The communists, they always bite the hand that feeds them time and time again. This attack on a corporate headquarters reminded me, I recently saw a news update from back about a year or two ago. One of the Free Palestine protests in the UK broke into, I think, Elbit, which is an Israeli defense company. They have some research centers there in the UK to help the British economy, which is failing, partner with BAE Systems and some other good defense companies there. And these protesters, it was like a Free Palestine action or something. So they literally broke into there. They destroyed like millions of dollars worth of equipment. And then when the cops came in to remove them, they took a sledgehammer and they beat a female cop in the spine and basically nearly killed her. She survived, but I think she's paralyzed. Anyhow, today the verdict came out and they are all completely innocent. The jury decided to let them go completely. Ergo for justice in a country like the UK. It's funny that they expect businesses to continue to partner with them. That was surprising. They nearly killed a cop. But it's funny, you'll have people for tweets go to jail for years. Right? If you retweeted something, you made a joke, you offended somebody, oops, don't offend the Muslim because now you're going to go to jail for years and years. But if in the name of freeing Palestine, you destroy lab equipment and businesses worth millions of dollars and you literally nearly kill a cop, oh, that's just fine. We'll just waive that. You're good to go.
Yeah, let's just say the legal system in any country doesn't always use common sense. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, unfortunately, the judiciaries are
judiciary.
Thank you.
Judiciary.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Say that 10 times fast. It is one of those things that were ideologically captured. One of the first industries that was ideologically captured. It was very intelligent of the left back. This is the Soviet playbook. One of the first episodes we played the video of Bezmenov, who was the ex-KGB agent, and he was explaining the entire tactic from start to finish. And it literally played out just like that. They captured the law schools and the judge unions and stuff like that, and then the education systems, and that's why we're seeing these students protest instead of studying math and things that could be beneficial for them and for the economy and for America as a whole. Go to China, you can be sure that it's ironic because these people emulate or they look up to China, but then you look at China and believe me, there are no students protesting. Again, we don't want to be like China in any way, shape, or form, but there the students are very focused on studying math and English and everything else that could be relevant to them, in addition to Mandarin, of course.
Absolutely. And listen, the whole immigration debate is a big thing. Let's take a look at the broader discussion on immigration. We have a clip on that. We'll get that going. Here we go.
Allow our children to go back to school. We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota. And there's one person who can end this now. And I'll go back to it again. Please show some decency, pull these folks out, reset this situation, and allow us to do the job that the Attorney General, myself, were elected to do, protect the people of Minnesota and carry out the laws of Minnesota.
In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes.
Senator Biden, yes or no, would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No.
I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked.
Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe that they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous.
We will not allow violence against our law enforcement officers, and we need state and local help, state and local law enforcement, to help us coordinate to get violent criminals off the streets. Mayor Fry and Chief O'Hare just a few minutes ago did the opposite of that by omitting the fact that the suspect had a gun and magazines full of ammunition. In what looks like a situation, again, where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement.
This is a Washington Post headline from 9 years ago, 2016. Meet the man the White House has honored for deporting illegal immigrants. And I would remind everyone in this room that it was former President Barack Hussein Obama who awarded a medal to Mr. Homan. So he's obviously very qualified. He has the full trust and faith of the president. He will continue to have these meetings in the hopes that ICE and local law enforcement can cooperate and work together to have successful immigration enforcement, as we've seen in almost every other state across the country.
So, interestingly, we have on the one hand, again, like we discussed a few minutes ago, we have Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota basically saying that, you know, let our Attorney General basically like also let us do our thing. We don't need you guys, but clearly you do.
Yeah, exactly.
And then ultimately everyone's saying we don't need this, we don't need, there's this huge thing acting, there's something crazy going on under the current administration as far as all these deportations. But the reality is President Obama deported.
That's why that clip you shared is so valuable.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, and then you hear the way they were talking. There was, who was there? Bill Clinton. Yeah. It was Biden as a senator.
Hillary
Clinton was there. Right. Hillary Clinton, Obama. They're all saying the same thing. Trump's saying exactly the same thing there.
Between when the Democratic Party was still normal and had a moral ideology, and when they went off the deep end and became completely woke and just lost the plot. And now they're all faking it because they're all acting as if this is something they've
something new, something unheard of. Never seen before.
Their opinions were opinions they've held forever, when in reality they're the ones, they're acting like we are radical, when in reality they change their opinions on a dime.
Yeah, and listen, that's why a lot of people that, look, Trump got not just the electoral, no, I can't say that, the electoral college, but also got the popular vote. Why is that? Because people say, look, they didn't leave the Democrat Party left them. Okay?
Us, all of us. Like, we were all exactly traditional Democrats.
Exactly. So ultimately the issue was that it went so far off of center, way left off the deep end. And that's why today, if you look at this, the current Republican Party, the MAGA that are supposed to somehow be radicals, are just basically in the middle for the majority. Not all, but the majority. It's somewhere near the middle. But they view that as being some new place because they've moved the paper. The goalposts have changed, and now they're looking at something totally different.
Tell me about that hotel
at the end. Well, so let's give me a second. I'll set it up before I'll tell you what that is. So what do we see next? We saw Commander Greg Bovino, who was commanding the federal operations in Minneapolis after the second shooting resulting in a death. He was transitioned to another, he's still doing his job, but just not Minneapolis, and they put Tom Homan in. Now, just regarding what Greg was saying, the only thing, the narrative initially that came out of the federal government, I don't agree with completely. They were saying this guy was there and he was armed and this and that.
Yeah, we discussed this in depth 2 episodes ago.
However, we did post a video since the last episode, which shows the encounter 11 days before his death, which does show him being
a lot of context to that.
Off the wall aggressive, taking a vehicle, a federal vehicle, breaking the light. You go up to a police car down the street and kick out the lights on the police car and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, good luck. And people act like that's, and now they're not like, we're not seeing anything. We don't want to look at that. Look, that's who this guy was. And he's showing up and being aggressive while armed. That's a major problem. Okay. Yeah. If you can have the responsibility of having a weapon on you, you're not going to go and act that way. You can't. That's just part of having a weapon. You don't want to act that way to begin with, but definitely not armed, and definitely not armed with law enforcement where you're kicking at them and being aggressive and violent towards them. So that's why it's hard to view that guy as just because the narrative on the other side was the guy is just some angel and, oh, he's a nurse and he's such a great guy. But look, he was out of control.
Yeah, we had very good coverage of it, I think, the first time. And just a reminder for everybody, check out our shorts and our clips, because that's where these updates come out on. And it did add a lot of context to that original discussion that we had. So definitely keep your eyes out for those additional.
And we can put links also in this episode to those. And look, otherwise, the issue is that both sides are not. The truth is somewhere in the middle. But the reality is that if everyone stayed out of the way and let the federal agents do what they needed to do, if they're doing anything completely improper or illegal or whatever, that could be taken up after. You don't want to take the court to the streets. You want to basically you want to be judged by a jury, not carried by a group of pallbearers, is the theme. You don't want to wind up in that situation. So I don't completely, the stance that the federal government had regarding what happened, I don't know. Maybe because they knew this guy had been so aggressive before and because they knew he was armed and so forth, they were just like, this guy's he's a hair away from just losing it and doing something even much more violent.
What they did say that is correct is that the mayor who covered the whole story conveniently forgot to mention that he was armed and carrying magazines. So that's ridiculous too.
Everyone forgets also what they were there to do. They were there to detain somebody. They were there on a targeted operation. It was a guy they were going after. And the guy they were going after has been since interviewed. So they weren't just doing a sweep of whatever and picking up everyone off the street that looked a certain way. Completely false narrative. Okay. They were going after one person and these guys interfered. That's a problem. So again, sad all around to these 2 people that lost their lives senselessly for no purpose. They were put in harm's way by believing in what they were doing. But the transition has been that Tom Homan, the border czar, has come into Minneapolis and he's running the operations there. And I think because there's been enough pressure on both sides, they've been able to reduce the number of federal agents because they've agreed to allow, because the issue has been that in the county jails, anything other than some of the cooperation at the state level with the state prisons, they were releasing people back. They weren't, despite what they were saying, they really weren't holding on to the people to allow them to be handed off to ICE. And that's the issue. If you have someone that's already detained, that's behind bars, don't let them back in the community, because then ICE has to go hunt them down in the community. If this is happening at a jail, it might take 1 or 2 federal agents to just go. The guy's already or gal's already handcuffed, and they just.
And it's worth noting these people weren't arrested just because of their immigration status. They were arrested for committing a crime, and then they're being sent back to the community.
Yeah, and yet these people are putting themselves in harm's way to protest against what what the ICE agents are doing. So just the whole thing is it's one big mess, because it's really not doing what anybody would want to do. And then at the very end, so there has been some changes. The number of federal agents have been reduced as far as quantity in Minneapolis because there is more cooperation now. I think because the Walz administration and Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, knew he had to do something at this point. Because even the cracks were starting to show that they really weren't doing their part. The narrative is, this isn't happening everywhere. This is only happening in a couple of cities, that it's a problem.
There's a reason. Yeah. When I was watching Walt speak, I was a little dumbfounded by seeing the Somali flag fly behind him. Oh, sorry, that's the new Minnesota flag, which has been captured by Somali. Sorry, my confusion there. I do want to say that he invoked Anne Frank's name in vain.
Yeah,
and shame on him for doing that. It was International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and my son actually took a kid's book about Anne Frank to school, and the class read it, and it was very fascinating for them. So anybody who's not familiar, definitely catch up on that. Interesting, she actually went to a Montessori school. That was very interesting. Most people don't know about her. But I think Walz is, obviously he's responding to the situation, but also he's trying to create as much attention as possible to divert from the crimes that he's been committing, or allegedly at least enabling, if not committing, along with the said Somali pirates who have captured Minneapolis and St. Paul, who have basically taken over the city and have been stolen billions, tens of billions of dollars from the federal government and funneled it to terror groups in Somalia and other countries as well. I think that's why he's so involved, because he knows that his end is coming, and the more he can distract people from his own personal situation, the better off it seems. He can paint it as a picture against liberty and freedom and whatever.
I think the left's use of Nazism, calling everyone a Nazi, calling all the Trump supporters a Nazi, invoking Anne Frank's name and story and equating this to that is it just shows. And the thing is, he's not that stupid, I don't think. I think he just doesn't care.
I don't know. He was her running mate, Kamala's running mate. So how more stupid can you be?
But I don't either. He's that stupid or he's that despicable that he would equate what's going on with Nazi Germany. It just to me, I find it just offensive. Okay.
So explain to me, in that hotel, the people up top by the window waving.
Yes. So because of these, that's why I set this up. Because of the changes and because there is some cooperation now, and because Minneapolis police is now on the streets controlling the crowds of people protesting. These are the federal agents, ICE, Border Patrol, whoever, are up at the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott, having what some people say is a beer or whatever drink, enjoying, looking down onto the streets, because they were always protesting in front of the hotel these guys and gals were staying at. So they're there protesting, and they're like, they got no problem. They're just up there in the warm hotel room having a drink, watching the Minneapolis police having to put up with the crowd control and the crazies. And like we said in the last episode, this is one of the reasons why Minneapolis and more broadly all these cities don't want to have their local police on the ground. And the reason is, now they have to deal with this. And if they push too hard or do whatever, or God forbid someone gets hurt or worse, guess who now the blame gets focused on? They can't blame it on Trump. They're going to have to blame it on the mayor or the governor or whatever. And they don't want to be put in that situation because they know full well that these types of operations have a certain inherent risk. And they don't want to, now they've been squeezed into having to, if you notice though, the Minneapolis PD all wears, and even the National Guard that's been deployed by the state, all wear these high visibility vests so people can know those aren't federal. Those aren't federal. Be nice to these.
Oh, that's why they're wearing the vests?
So they can know who's who, so they can go be mean to the federal agents and or troops. That being said, we touched upon indoctrination, and we were talking about how in schools they're having walkouts and all this stuff. I just want to show you a clip here out of Florida. Now, it's Broward County, which is arguably one of the absolute most bluest left-leaning areas in the state. It's very different than the rest of
where you live.
Exactly. But let's play this news clip and then just touch on a couple of things, because this is happening across the country. It's just that here, at least, they have the sense that they know if they go on the streets and become violent or block traffic, they'll get arrested. So at least that isn't happening. But let's take a look.
Discussion and controversy over immigration and customs enforcement is not confined to adults. Kids are noticing ICE agents arresting people as well.
And today, students at one local high school staged a walkout to make a statement. Ari Otzer joins us live from Pembroke Pines with the story. Ari.
Well, Juwan, the demonstration happened out here on the football field at Pembroke Pines Charter High School. Hundreds of students came out here chanting anti-ICE slogans. They did what they called a peace walk around the track here, and then they headed back to class, satisfied that they had made a statement. The kids had a mission, a reason to walk out of class and hold a demonstration on the football field. Organizer Aiden Oscar said he and his colleagues wanted to spread awareness of the tactics being used by ICE and CBP agents.
You see videos of like ICE agents like terrorizing, and tearing apart families. And when you see that, it's like you can't do anything but just say something, because it really touches me. Because people are telling me in classes like how their uncles and family members are being taken by ICE.
The recent events in Minnesota, where federal agents shot and killed 2 people, galvanized the students here at Pembroke Pines Charter High School.
Families are being torn apart. People are dying. It's unheard of. This is unhuman. We have the right to speak up, freedom of speech, to speak up for our people. This is wrong.
Seeing that happen to people that could have happened to my mom if she never had her papers, it's like a really bad thing, and my family lives in fear and stuff, and it's just very hurtful to see.
People aren't safe, and it's not just Hispanic people, it's all people.
The demonstration lasted 1 class period, and according to the principal, it was peaceful and organized, and it continued briefly after school.
We just want to see people be treated equally, no matter their culture, their race, or anything like that. We're all humans after all.
And the principal told me that today's demonstration was not authorized by the school administration, but he also said that he's proud that the kids were able to learn something about the First Amendment, exercise their rights, and they did it without getting in any kind of trouble. We're live in Pembroke Pines. Ari Odzer, NBC6 News.
So
NBC was really egging that on with that coverage. That's for sure. They were really rah-rahing that protest. There's no question about that.
That's the NBC affiliate here in South Florida. So obviously they are, going to lean things a certain way. So a couple of points. They're saying that the school principal said that they didn't authorize it, but people that I know in the community that are connected to that charter school tell me that the school administration, everyone knew. The police was even advised in advance. They all knew this was going to happen. And that it lasted only 1 period, okay? Then some people said, we'll call that lunch, was the lunch break or whatever. It's just 1 period.
Was it in the afternoon, or was it the last class of the day?
No, it was midday or something. And then they went back to class, and then they diddle something on the way out. I have no issue with people wanting to protest and say whatever. I think that's terrific, and I think it's good for people to learn about that. We have a tradition in this country of being able to think of what happened in the 1960s. But that being said, that's not what concerns me. It concerns me that you have a high school, charter school at that, which is city run or back sort of school. It's not part of the regular school district.
Backed by businesses, yeah.
Which is more, the school district schools are even more
radical,
left side of things. So that they would clear the message is not what the stated message is. If you hear the comments made by the kids, that there's terrorizing. So it says that the thing is to protest the tactics. Okay, got it. And again, the way you fix that is make sure that all law enforcement, detention centers, etc., are cooperating. Then the tactics completely change. The tactics are being dictated by these policies that are forcing the tactics that are being used. So I don't know, these kids are being taught. That's number one. So they should be protesting.
They're not being taught. Remember, NBC told us kids are noticing. Kids are noticing.
Exactly. Yeah, no one's telling them. So they're noticing, and then maybe they're not noticing that maybe they should be protesting to change things in those cities and states so that they cooperate more fully with, federal law enforcement to make sure that these tactics aren't used. That would be the more correct thing, I would think. And then they talk about tearing families apart. Again, it's been pointed out, and Tom Homan's pointed this out numerous times, even under oath when he's been questioned about that. And he says, look, if someone is a U.S. citizen and they commit a crime, they're going to be taken to jail. They don't take your kids to jail with the parent.
Yeah.
The parents are separated. There's child separation all the time. And then the other thing that Greg Bovino brought up in one of his talks was, how come no one's talking about the permanent separation by the kids of the parents that get murdered, or vice versa, where the kids get killed by these criminal illegal aliens, and it's a permanent separation because they've lost their lives.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is no one
more tragic
protesting about that?
Not to mention that a lot of these families get separated when they enter the United States as well. They enter separate, or some elements of the family stay behind, some elements of the family enter. Family separation happens all the time when they're entering, and that's apparently not a problem. It's only if family separation happens when they're leaving, that's when the problems begin. Also, I noticed that when they were talking about the kid separation, they showed the clip of that kid in Minneapolis who it turned out that his father left him in the car and ran away when he saw ICE coming instead of staying with his kid. So it isn't, and then the ICE just took the kid and returned it to his family. So it's not that ICE the pictures made it seem like ICE is arresting kids. In reality, the father ditched his child in order to run away from the law. I just noticed that clip that they shoved in there as well.
Yeah, and the reason that they took custody of the child is they did try to go back to the house, and the people there, I guess, were too scared to open the door, whatever, so they refused to take the kid back in the house. Perhaps they were concerned that was a tactic to get them detained as well, but bottom line is, yeah, they didn't have a choice. They did the right thing. They took the kid apparently to some fast food restaurant and got some food, and rather than commending them. And I got one other thing, 11 years on the Mexican border. The one thing that I find offensive beyond belief is that, again, or just total that people don't get what they're talking about, is there were so many unaccompanied minors that were sent over to this country. Okay, little kids sent over with the coyotes, people that were being paid to transport them to the U.S. Okay, and like probably 90% of those kids, if not more, were sexually abused. Okay, all on the way over. They might have drowned, because I saw a kid drowned in the Rio Grande River trying to cross over. They're putting kids in massive harm's way, and the parents are intentionally separating them from themselves. I'm sorry, I'd like to give my kids a better life, but I wouldn't go and send them with a group of people that I knew was going to rape my kid. And
in a country where there's nobody to take care of them, to watch them, to love for them.
So the open borders was encouraging. That wouldn't happen if the borders are sealed up. Like now, there's virtually no illegal entry into the United States. It's down to, they can't count any. There's like none. There's probably a few, but it's so little, they can't even, it's a rounding error. So these are the kinds of things that people don't get. When I see them protesting anti-ICE, I'm like, you know what? You're protesting about the wrong thing. You really are. You're not protesting about the actual problems. You're protesting about the people trying to come in and fix the problem. You don't like how they're fixing it, but the problem has to be fixed. And arguably millions of people were let into this country. Millions.
Tens of millions.
Over, some say as much as 10 to 20 plus million in 4 years under the Biden administration. How come no one's protesting against that? Because
that's in addition to the 30 million that were here illegally.
So it's like a total insanity. So to think that they're just going to go out and round up every person just because of whatever, no. They're really not targeting that. But what often happens is, again, they say this collateral. They're getting this bad guy, but there's 3 other people there, and all those people also undocumented. So guess what? Be careful who you hang out with.
Exactly, especially if you're here illegally. And again, we should definitely discuss removing the tens of millions of people who are here illegally, regardless, even if they're not criminals. But going after the criminals, this should be a no-brainer, basically.
Obama had given a reasonable sort of framework. Again, there's been, all the presidents have. It just, Congress doesn't act. The idea is, listen, if someone's been here 30 years, has no criminal record, has done nothing wrong. And even Hillary Clinton said the same thing. Hillary said, look, there's got to be a way that they pay back the taxes they owed if they weren't paying, to make things whole, and they can never become a U.S. citizen. But they can stay as a resident of some under a special program, but their kids would now. So it's for the first generation that comes over, they would still get some special status, but they have to not be criminals, not be this. They have to come. Hillary Clinton always would say they have to come out of the darkness and come forward out of the shadows. So it's been said for years. It just has to be done. But in the meantime, we have to fix the bad stuff that's happening.
And illegal aliens are forced to pay taxes anyways. The IRS requires everyone pay taxes, whether they're here illegally or not. And I don't think the IRS ever worked with ICE in the past to say, hey, we just got taxes from so-and-so, and by the way, they're here illegally.
But a lot of people, but if they're working cash businesses, they're not paying taxes because nobody knows. I'm just saying there's an entire shadow sort of thing going on that nobody knows who makes what money. There are bank accounts. There's none of that. But look, all that being said, there are mechanisms to do this. But it's, again, there are elected officials that want to see turmoil. They want, this is China. Great. They want.
So a lot of this is psychological warfare caused by our enemies over the web, right? These kids are heavily influenced about what they're seeing online. And a lot of that is directed by Qatar and by China and by bot farms in Malaysia and in Pakistan and stuff like that. I noticed that one of the kids said, it's time for us to speak up for our people. And I was a little dumbfounded because I thought that our people is the American people, but apparently not. It's worth noting he was likely referring to Spanish people or Mexicans. I love Mexicans. I lived there for many years, but not many, but for some. There are tens of millions of, maybe even close to 100 million Americans of Latin descent, let's just say, who are in the United States 100% legally. Right?
Of course.
Those are our people. Our people are the criminals who came in over the last 4 years, especially illegally. Our people are the people who are here legally and pay taxes and are good citizens of the country, to which there are tens of millions or maybe even close to 100 million. So that was just a note that I definitely had.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just see to what level of craziness this has gone. Let's take a look at this next compilation, which touches on immigration, but first it touches on the Epstein files. Let's take a look.
Well, this week on Truth Bomb Consequences Edition, I don't know what is more, amusing or disturbing or any other adjective. The news about Microsoft founder Bill Gates or the news about failed CNN host Don Lemon. Let's start with Bill Gates, shall we? The tech zillionaire and vaccine enthusiast, seen here with public health supremo Anthony Fauci. Gates' name was mentioned in the latest Department of Justice drop of Jeffrey Epstein emails. And guess what, folks? It seems that back in 2013, Epstein wrote an email to himself in what appears to have been a file note about an argument he says he had with Gates, alleging that not only did Gates engage in sex with Russian girls, giving them the jab, as it were, but that he also contracted an STD and asked for antibiotics he could surreptitiously give to his wife, Melinda. Because, well, apparently the world's most famous software engineer wasn't taking enough precautions against viruses. Now, again, these are all allegations from Jeffrey Epstein, someone who might be considered an unreliable witness, and there are reports that Epstein had drafted the emails on behalf of one of Gates' aggrieved employees. And the Gates Foundation, of course, we have to say this, had issued a statement saying that the claims in these emails are, quote, absurd and false. But I guess it's just a funny coincidence, then, that in this very same year, 2013, when all this was alleged to have gone down, that Bill Gates offered a prize of $100,000 to whomever could invent a so-called super condom. And by the way, he never paid off that bet. But in 2021, he did write a check for billions of dollars to his now ex-wife Melinda, who left him in part because of his ties to Epstein. Funny that, but not as funny, frankly, as the FAFO comeuppance being experienced by CNN has-been Don Lemon. Last seen in what can only be described as the invasion of a Baptist church in Minnesota, which was targeted last month by anti-Trump, anti-immigration enforcement protesters because of claims the pastor had ties to ICE. Here's a bit of what that looked like. And Don Lemon himself, walking or in fact crossing the line between journalist and activist, also confronted the pastor in question.
We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here. Yeah. Okay, that's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. Yeah. We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, here the very Christian Lemon reveled in how his group chased people out of the church, saying the action he participated in was traumatic and uncomfortable. And that was the whole point.
You know, I've imagined it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really slippery, not kidding. That's what protesting is about, and so.
yes, well, Lemon may have gotten himself in a bit of trouble here because guess what? Federally speaking, that sort of trouble is a bit of a no-no. Because while the First Amendment protects freedom of speech, it also protects freedom of worship and the right to worship unmolested by people like Don Lemon. And thanks to something called the FACE Act, which was designed in part and perhaps ironically to protect access to abortion clinics, it is specifically a federal crime to interfere with services at religious houses of worship. And as they say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, because Lemon has now been arrested and indicted on 2 counts by a federal grand jury on charges of federal civil rights violations, to which I say, good. Of course, the usual suspects are losing their mind. MS Now, you'll remember it as MSNBC, is calling the FACE Act an obscure law that's being used against him. Don't you love this reasoning? This is the weirdest defense I've heard since they were all screaming that Renee Good shouldn't have been shot because she was wearing a beanie. And ironically, an anti-Trump outfit calling itself, get this, the Not Above the Law Coalition, has issued a furious statement suggesting that, well, maybe in this case, Don Lemon should be above the law.
Epstein, any comments on, obviously there's still so much going around. The only thing, I did see a video that showed that there does appear to be someone wearing orange, which would be like the jumpsuits they wear in prison, going up the stairs. So you just see a little sliver going up the stairs at 10:29 p.m. or something to Epstein's cell area. That's new. That wasn't shown before. They now have included this missing clip, which shows someone moving up. So was it someone wearing that sort of garb for? Was it
like we discussed in a few prior episodes regarding Epstein, when we shared that clip about the missing video clip of and all the memes of Hillary Clinton and everything like that? Jails are where criminals live and stay. And a lot of murder happens in jails, right? Sure. So it's not out of the picture that someone or many people contracted criminals in jail to assassinate him. That's completely logical, which is why some people, when they're in jail, even innocently, for example, when Tommy Robinson is arrested, he has to be in solitary confinement because the jails in the UK are filled with Muslims and they will all murder him if they can get their hands on him. So even though he's in jail for very minor crimes, really no crimes at all, aside from speech, which is a huge crime in the UK, unfortunately. He has to be in solitary confinement, not because he acted wrong, but because for his own protection, quote unquote. So Epstein, I think, was supposed to be in solitary confinement, but he did have a roommate, so maybe not. It's very likely that it was a criminal that assassinated him. There's no question about that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a guard. There are many ways to kill a person. As the saying goes, there are many ways to skin a lamb, isn't that? There's some
skin a cat.
Skin a cat.
Skin a
exactly.
cat. I wouldn't want to do either, but yeah. And then listen, so there's obviously a lot of stuff being looked at, a lot more bad news for the royal family and the former prince. And look, I think that it's still, we need more time to see really what's going to come of all this. But we talk millions and millions of files, a lot of crazy pictures. Bill Clinton didn't come out unscathed. There's a lot of pictures with former President Clinton. But time will tell, and I think we'll come back to this, obviously, when there's more information. And Don Lemon, what are your thoughts on that? I know.
Just to note a few things on the Epstein files first. One of the names that dropped is Elon's name, Elon Musk. He has been one of the biggest proponents of arresting, sending to jail anybody who's involved with criminal acts. There are a lot of people that Epstein emailed or communicated with that didn't.
I think only second to Trump, who outed Epstein here in Palm Beach County.
Yeah, exactly. Although Trump and the administration have been a little kind of coy more recently on that. But
I think it's because of the mass number of people on the right and left that had something that, even if it wasn't completely illegal, was certainly not flattering. And we're talking about a lot of people. There's the owner of a sports team that should remain nameless and so forth. And that might be part of the thing, that there's obviously so many massive people, because Epstein obviously was very good at schmoozing people and getting them.
With everyone. He really
was interacting with so many people. And the question is how much of that is actually a real problem versus somebody saying, hey, if he's trying to set someone up, say, hey, take a picture with them. Let's get a couple of pictures. Not understanding what the pictures might be said to represent. So I think that's part of the issue. But I think we'll know more as time goes on with
I think, like we discussed it in the past, we saw Trump went to some of his parties because all of the who's who in New York went to some of his parties. So the fact that you went to some of his parties doesn't necessarily mean anything. Right. And the fact that you emailed him, so Elon never went to any of his parties on his plane or to his island. So that really any lack of evidence. But what he has been claiming time and time again is that and this should be stated from every rooftop, is that it is unimaginable and ridiculous that Epstein has been arrested and convicted twice for running a ring of pedophilia, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail for the same exact thing. And many of the victims have come forward and testified publicly that they were victimized, but for some reason, none of the criminals, aside from Epstein himself, of course, have been arrested. It is truly unbelievable. We know that there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people who are involved in the heinous acts, right? We're not talking about went to a party, emailed him. Actually in the heinous acts, doing horrible things to children, going to his island, doing creepy things, right? We know that there are thousands of people and nothing happened to any of them over at least 4 administrations. So that's the real story here. And that's what we have to continue claiming. Getting the documents is nice. Getting the documents for JFK's assassination. JFK's assassination, though, was so long ago, you really can't do anything about it. Here, many of the people who committed these crimes, like Bill Gates, are still around, are still involved, are still funding many things, like Reid Hoffman, like Bill Gates, and like many others, specifically with underage people. So that's what we should really keep our attention to, is who's being prosecuted, who's being arrested for these crimes, not just who was mentioned in the documents. That's a lot less relevant. Obviously, it could be very interesting too, but less critical. Interesting, another discovery was that Epstein had a lot of involvement with the Russian government as well, and a lot of Russian oligarchs and his security guards and not his pilots, I don't think, but a whole bunch of the people that he was hanging around with were involved with FSB and Russian intelligence. He actually threatened people that if they don't listen to him, then he'll send the FSB on them. So it's obviously he had involvements with Ehud Barak, who's a vile person. He was the former prime minister of Israel, very hardcore left-wing person. A notable discovery that we had from newly released documents is that Ehud Barak was talking to Epstein about possibly importing 1 million Russians, supposedly non-Jewish Russians, but maybe related to Jews or something like that, because then they can get Israeli citizenship, but importing them to Israel to have better chances of winning the election. So like we saw with Biden do, where for the Democrats, in order for them to win elections, importing people, he was trying to do that to Israel as well. So that was surprising. He was a very violent. People try and assume that because he was involved, it means that the Mossad is involved. It means that everything else, that Epstein was an operative. It doesn't necessarily mean much. Barak was just a really despicable person who, when he finished with politics, became very close with Epstein. He wasn't close with Epstein, to the best of my knowledge, when he was in the Department of Defense or anything like that. So that was interesting as well. Back to Don Lemon. Don Lemon said, "I'm a Christian, and I think he's as Christian as he is as Christian as I am Jesus," basically. Again, I don't know what's in his heart, but I seriously doubt that man is a hardcore Christian. And it was reminiscent of the clip we recently saw of Mamdani, who, to tie things together, there are a lot of videos and images of Mamdani's mother, who was very much involved with Epstein now, and even pictures of young Mamdani hanging out with Epstein. That was definitely new to me. But Mamdani he was just in New York, and he was saying, the Prophet Muhammad taught us that just like he was accepted into Medina, that we have to accept immigrants. Interesting to note that what he didn't mention is that the Prophet Muhammad later forced everybody in Medina to convert to Islam, and if they didn't, he completely murdered them in cold blood. And that it's also worth noting that almost no Muslim countries let in any immigrants whatsoever. So just an interesting note in people using the name of the Lord, quote unquote, or the name of the Prophet, quote unquote, in order to justify illegal immigration. What do you think about that?
I think it's nonsense, as usual, just typical nonsense. And listen, the issue with Don Lemon is that I'm glad he was arrested, because it draws a line in the sand for other people to discourage other people from doing this. I doubt much will come of it. We'll see. But the bottom line is his defense that he's a journalist is absolutely idiotic. And I'll cover that in a minute. Tell you what, let's hear what the left-wing TMZ has to say. This is Harvey Levin, who we know he and his crew is very left-leaning. When it was announced that Charlie Kirk had passed away, his team started cheering, and unfortunately they were live on camera. Then they came up with some cockamamie story that they were cheering because there was a car chase, and I actually saw the video of the car chase, and like it was so benign. There was no one would ever cheer to that. They were cheering because they were happy that someone had passed away. Okay, and that's what goes on at TMZ. So let's play this, and I'll give you my take on the arrest and really why it's an issue. But let's see. Of course, this is what people are saying on the left regarding this arrest.
So the Trump administration wonders why people are saying that they are trying to form a dictatorship. Well, look at the landscape. Arresting Don Lemon, who covered a protest in Minneapolis, is just insane, ridiculous, dictator-like. This is the playbook that dictators use to destroy democracies and take the will of the people away. It is as simple as that. The First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason. It is considered the preferred amendment when you have to start balancing what's more important. The framers of the Constitution knew that a free press was essential to a democracy. Without a free press, you don't have a democracy. And it's real clear that Donald Trump and company doesn't want a free press. The idea that a journalist, which Don Lemon has been for 30 years, would walk into a church and film a demonstration which is of national interest, and then to say somehow, when you watch the video, they say he's part of the protest. Watch that video. He is covering the protest. He is covering it. That's what journalists do. I covered riots. I was a local reporter in Los Angeles for 15 years, and I covered riots and floods and earthquakes and all sorts of things where I had to step into areas where there were police, where there was activity, private property. When you're covering an event like this, like a protest, which I've covered many, you step into it. And that's what journalists do. And that's what Don Lemon did. The idea that the Justice Department is saying he walked onto private property, that is insane. A church invites everybody in. Have you ever seen a church with a no trespassing sign saying no journalists allowed? Have you ever seen any house of worship that says that? It is insane, insane that they're making this stupid argument, transparent. And yet, a grand jury indicted Don Lemon after a magistrate said there's insufficient evidence. Well, a grand jury will indict anybody because Don Lemon doesn't appear before the grand jury. Abby Lowell, his lawyer, doesn't appear before the grand jury. The Justice Department says what the Justice Department wants the grand jury to believe, and almost every time they believe it. It's all the way it's skewed. This is a ridiculous assault, and I don't want to say just on the First Amendment. It's a ridiculous assault on democracy. Trump administration should be ashamed of itself, but they're not. And they will continue to do this. And they are going after journalists. They're getting search warrants for their homes. It is obvious what's happening in this country, people. Look at what is happening. You're going to look back in 2 years if somebody doesn't stand up to them, and I know people are now, but you're going to look back in 2 years and say, wow, we didn't see that coming. Well, Neville Chamberlain should have saw it coming, and he didn't. And we don't want to be in that position. So wise up, everybody, because it's obvious what's happening here. This is an outrage.
So I have to say, those arguments are pretty convincing. He did a fairly interesting job of
to the uneducated and to the person that doesn't know, they sound. That's why I played it. It's a long clip, right?
Yeah,
And
it sounds very convincing.
And it's a great propaganda thing for the left to do that. It's a very good anti-Trump.
So name dropping Neville Chamberlain wasn't that relevant at the end, but aside from that, it was pretty decent.
Now let's look and see why it's just seems ridiculous. So, first of all, as we covered in a prior episode, it wasn't that Don Lemon showed up at a protest and started filming. He met with them before this. He has footage of the meeting with the people discussing while it was being planned. So he knew this was happening, and he was basically there to go with them. Okay. So he went with them into the protest. And
That's
then,
not unheard of for a journalist to do either, though.
no, I disagree wholeheartedly. An arsonist is planning to burn down a building with a family in there. They're going to burn the whole building down, and there's a family living in there, and they're planning the attack. And they include a journalist who's going to come along for the ride, is going to be there to record the burning of the building. That's one. Two, someone's going to carjack somebody violently and aggressively, but they're going to bring a journalist along. That's illegal. You can't just go along for the ride. In fact, if you go along for the bank robbery just to film it, to have great journalism, you're actually charged like the bank robbers. Because you're part, there's no exception. There's no exception to being a journalist if you're partaking in that manner. It's not like you're showing up as a third party and filming the thing. Okay, so the Constitution of the United States. This has been questioned, and the Supreme Court has ruled that there are limitations on the First Amendment. So people, the First Amendment. This guy knows what either, again, back to the same thing like Tim Walz. Is Harvey Levin that uneducated? I doubt it. He knows that what he's saying is bullshit. But here's the thing. With the First Amendment, there's a test of three things at least. Time, place, and manner. Okay? So you have to look at the time that this is being done, the place it's being done, and the manner in which it's being done. If when I worked
in front of the church when it was empty and
if
closed,
I was in the middle of doing heart surgery when I worked as part of a heart surgery team, and in the OR we're doing surgery, and people come in to protest in the middle of surgery, you think that First Amendment protects that if they're recording? They're going with them, knowing they're going to no. What they should be doing is calling the police and saying they're going to disrupt this surgery, which is illegal.
Yeah.
You can't just go with them and then say, I have a veil of protection from the First Amendment. No, you don't. No, you don't, because the time, place, and manner determines whether you're protected by the First Amendment. You're not in an operating room. You're not at the scene of a crime. And the issue is he was involved. He was materially involved. He knew they were doing this. Now, if he recorded himself saying, you know what, you guys really shouldn't do this. It's against the law. You can't just go and disrupt the church service. You can't go and harass people during a church service. There's going to be a problem. If he recorded himself saying that, that would be different. But that's not what he did. He was so happy and excited that he was going to cover this, and after gleefully explained that how this was disruptive and that's what it's supposed to be. And then he was interviewed, and I think we had it in our last episode, where he's saying, I'm not that branch of Christianity. I don't think that's... And he went on to say that he felt that branch of Christianity there was rooted in white supremacy, and that's when I pointed out that he's married to a white guy. So this whole white supremacy thing also just pops up. Nazism, white supremacy, everything has to be a label. Yeah. But so the First Amendment does not protect someone who engages actively with someone in the commission of a crime, knowing that they're going to do it, and is there standing by. You could take it to, someone's going to be raped. So if someone films the rape, they're protected?
Yeah, of course not.
You still have the same. You still have the same opinion after hearing Harvey Levin, and then my take on why the First Amendment does not protect a journalist from engaging in the manner that Don Lemon engaged. Do you at least see now the other side of it?
But again, this isn't a violent crime, right? This isn't a rape.
It's a crime. So
it was a violent invasion.
Robbery may not be violent either. So you can go in for the bank robbery.
But also the whoever, let's say, covered the rape wouldn't be prosecuted.
No, they were there at the time. That's the issue. It's not that he showed up randomly and started covering. Then he'd be protected. It's that he was aware of the plans to do this, was outside recording with them, went in with them, was in there while all this was being done. And the problem is when you start doing that,
he notified the police.
At the very least, he should have recorded himself telling them this is not a good idea. This is against the law. There are so do you think synagogues typically have a police car sitting out front? Do you think if a group like this of thugs showed up at a synagogue in the middle of service, had you ever been at a shul where this is, they would just look the other way and think it's okay? Honestly.
A lot of
no, not any synagogue. No, the guard would have flipped out and not let them in, or had called for backup with police.
And it's very sad that synagogues need security, and I'm very hopeful that churches don't need security, because again, if this continues, then eventually
churches do, but their churches do need security now too, because of the events. People say that, and that's a false narrative, because churches now, even like in Texas, there's churches that actually have armed parishioners in the church because of the problems that they've had. So that's
like a lot of synagogues have.
So they have armed security, and it's not so this thing about it's only the synagogues. Not anymore. Not anymore. Christianity's under attack as well.
Yep.
And the bottom line is that this was hopefully a message to quote unquote journalists, okay, which we are as well, in the fact that we're providing journalism. But but it doesn't matter. First Amendment protects anyone that wants to go and report on something or take a camera. Bottom line is people have to understand there's limitations. There isn't this again, I can't believe that Harvey Levin is actually saying that and believes it. I can't believe that he believes it, that, oh, he was just a journalist. No, he wasn't. He knew what was going to be done. He knew it was illegal, or should have known, and went in there and didn't do anything to prevent or stop it. It's different if they were outside on the sidewalk protesting, so that when all the parishioners were coming out, they could hear the message.
Exactly.
They went up and they were in people's faces and they were screaming at them and threatening them.
It could have gotten violent very quickly. That's the thing. Like, it was a spark away from being like proper violence there. Either side could have initiated it, but it was very close to becoming violent just because of the manner that happened. And then again, violence in a place of worship is horrific. If they were standing outside, if they were protesting when the church was closed, those would all be very different scenarios. Like you said, place, time,
place, and manner. And that's what the Supreme Court has decided. There's limitations on free speech. If someone came outside your house at 3 a.m, okay, with loud music and fireworks and loudspeakers, it's typically against the law. And they can't say, I don't care about the noise ordinance. I don't care it's 3 a.m. I have a First Amendment right. And the answer is no, you don't. Because it's not the right place and certainly the wrong time and the manner in which you're doing this. If you're standing there quietly on the sidewalk, you're all good. Holding up a little sign quietly. You see what I'm saying? So that's the thing, that it doesn't take...
Again, there's the difference between the sidewalk and between my lawn, right? The minute they're on my lawn...
I'm even saying the sidewalk, right? Yeah. There are limitations on what you can do. Just like here in Florida, you don't see... That's why the kids at the charter school here in Florida, they were doing this on the football field. They're not... If they go block traffic, the police is going to come and they're going to have to do what they're going to have to do. They're not allowed being blocking traffic. That's the issue. So that's why, to live in a civilized society, there are some limitations. And what Don Lemon did is, again, opening the door to other journalists being in cahoots with people that are acting in a manner that's beyond the fray. That's something we don't want in our society. The protest itself isn't the issue, but you have to look at the time, the place, and the manner. That's it. And that unfortunately, for Don Lemon, and I don't think anything much will come of being charged, but whatever. Bottom line,
I doubt anything is happening. It
sends a message. It sends a message, and that's the most important thing. Listen, I think it's important to say that. Also in the news, we talked about things having consequences. It's not just actions like this. The FBI basically raided Fulton County, Georgia's election headquarters and got all the ballots from 2020 regarding the argument that there was some nefarious things going on during the 2020 elections, and they've seized all of those ballots and all of the information they have, the electronic information. There was a large debate recently about the fact that the way that the ballots were tabulated were basically illegal. And rather than cover the FBI story, which is a story that's just emerging now, let's take a look at this coverage from about a month ago that basically admits to the fact that over 300,000 votes in that county were illegitimate votes. Let's take a look. Here we go.
Fulton County made a stunning admission about the 2020 election. After almost 5 years of assuring voters all procedures were followed, it turns out that may not be entirely true. Now they face some steep fines from the state elections board. Atlanta News First political reporter Doug Reardon is live tonight at the state capitol, where this all came out earlier this month. Doug.
Yeah, good evening, Blair. And those fines could crest $1 million if the state elections board gets exactly what they're asking for. Fulton County essentially admitted that there were unsigned tabulator tapes. Those are those pieces of paper akin to receipts that come out of the voting tabulation machines that help them verify how many people voted and to make sure that it actually matches the number of votes that were cast. Those are unsigned, and that violates state law. The board also admitted that they were missing some documents tied to 2020.
But it's a violation of a rule. They should have done it.
A stunning admission earlier this month from an attorney representing Fulton County's election board.
The tapes that are an issue in this case have been produced. They just weren't signed.
The ticker tapes she's talking about, shown here, are almost like receipts spit out by voting tabulators on election night. State law says they must be signed by poll workers for verification, but some 150 tapes tracking the votes of some 315,000 people during early voting in 2020 weren't signed.
At best, this is sloppy and it's lazy. At worst, it could be egregious, and it could have affected an election.
Some other ticker tapes and documents tied to the 2020 election were also missing, the county said. The revelation made waves nationally. Even Elon Musk posted about it. Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger assured it wouldn't have altered the results of the election that was audited and verified several times over. Raffensperger posting online, quote, "A clerical error at the end of the day does not erase valid legal votes."
A clerical error could be one tabulator tape not signed or one tabulator tape missing, not 148 tabulator tapes missing.
Garland Favorito, who runs the conservative watchdog group Voter GA, said the admission is disturbing to people who've had doubts about the 2020 election for years.
It's not vindication. It's just about accuracy and in the integrity and security of future elections.
And that wasn't it for Fulton County this month. Just last Friday, a judge down the hill here ruled that they have to turn over images of ballots from 2020. It was something they had been fighting the state elections board on for well over a year. We're outside the state capitol. Doug Reardon, Atlanta News First.
And
yeah, that's a big deal.
The issue was, and the reason the FBI eventually went in is because, so what happens is when you put the ballot through the scanner, it goes through the scanner, and then what happens is it takes an image of it, and then it reads it, and then it tabulates whatever it is, the votes for whoever. Yeah. The image that's in there is what's supposed to be able to be compared back to see if it says you voted for person A, is person A the one that the tabulator gave the vote to electronically? Okay. Well, guess what? They were refusing to give these images up. Why? And the issue with these voting machines, has been a lot of talk about how you can actually go and manually switch what the votes are, or you can even program them in such a way that the votes don't get tabulated correctly. So what's on the image of what the person did isn't matched what the final vote is. And that's why I think the FBI finally went in, because they were refusing to provide
the images. So if the FBI has the images, they'll be able to count the correct votes?
They'll be able to match up. They're going to have to go through the thing and do the same as if there was a recount and go and verify to see. Basically, they're saying, oh, it's a clerical error. Oh, it's a rule. The rule invalidates 300,000 votes, and that's just
Trump won the election.
Yes, and in that county, and then for the state. So ultimately, the reality is
this happened in Georgia. That means he would have won the entire.
Right. How many other places do you think this happened? Okay, this is just one county out of the whole country.
This is the county getting the most attention for the longest, but there were a lot of issues with we saw where some of they boarded up the windows so people can't watch, that they were working ethically. There's been a lot of really sketchy things happening. And countries that do elections really correct, I think it's like in Taiwan or Korea or somewhere, where it's like they're like people from every single party standing there, and they have the right to really be there with cameras, and it's live streamed. There are ways of really making sure that things happen properly, because the minute it happens behind closed doors, things are really sketchy. If those votes were written off, it means that Trump won 3 elections. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's also worth remembering that for 4 years, for Trump was chased after many legal mechanisms for his one statement where he called and he said, find me 11,000 votes, specifically in Fulton in Georgia. So this was the one thing that he was criticized by above every single stage. He was criticized for election interference, all because he was saying, find me 11,000 votes. Now, he should have said, find me 11,000 fraudulent votes, and that more of an inquiry. But Trump speaks the way Trump talk, right? So you get what you get. And it was just a manner of speech, and it was obvious to anybody at the time. That was just, he was hoping that they would find fraudulent votes, which it turns out they're very much worth, 300,000 worth. He only needed 11,000, right? So 315,000, right? You can throw the 300,000 out the window. The 15,000 is more than the 11,000 he needed. Although in the grand scheme of things, I think it ended up turning out for the best that we had the horrific presidency of Biden. Not that the presidency of Biden was good, but that it really prepared Trump for this term, where he really came in prepared. He has the right people, really organized, knew exactly what he's going to do, and knew how to act fast. I think it was just like a continuation. If he would have won in 2020, America also wouldn't have appreciated. He didn't, I think in 2024, 2025, he got a mandate from the people like he never had, especially if it was contested election, stuff like that in 2020. But because Biden and Kamala were just so freaking disastrous for the country, I think the people in America hugely turned towards Trump for the 2024, 2025. So in the grand scheme of things, it turns out that it may have been for the better, but it doesn't make it correct. And we really have to worry about election integrity, which is why the SAVE Act must be passed. Push your congressman to do that, because it is very important. And it is very ironic because especially if the FBI counts and they do find that he did win those 315,000, or some of them were blank or whatever, that Trump was the only president in all of history that won 3 elections, which would be.
I think he is the only. I think he's already won 3 elections.
Yeah.
I'm not even viewing that as a debate. I followed hours and hours of congressional testimony. The amount of scams that were being run, it's just, and I don't know. I don't think a reasonable person can believe that the votes which were counted for Biden, that he actually had more votes than Obama. Come on, man. Like that no, mind-boggling amount of votes.
He was a dead man walking when he won.
Yeah, no. So just like, I'll give you the best example of that. It's like when I was in high school, I had a kid in class named was Carlos. And he went and he was failing, and he went and he got back in those days, the teachers would write the grades in this little grade book for every time he wrote a quiz or a test.
Oh, he changed his grades
in the book. And over a period of weeks, he was going into the book and slowly changing everything because she had written the grades in pencil. So he went and changed everything.
Kudos to him.
And now we're like on, I think Thursday or I think Friday. It was the last day. It was almost the last day of school. The last day was going to be Monday. And it was like Friday, and we show up to class. No one was going to show up Monday because right after that, it was going to be the final exams in the auditorium and everything. So everyone's going to just not come in on Monday and just study. Yeah. Our teacher comes in, and she has this look on her face, like I knew something horrific had happened. And she walks around and she says, a little Indian woman, she says, I am so disappointed, she says, some sly creature, that's what she said. I'll never forget the way she said it. Some sly creature changed the grades. And then Carlos says, oh, miss, come on, don't be ridiculous. And she turns with this look of like disdain towards him. And she says, I suspect you, Carlos, because when I took one look at your grade, I said, wow. And it's like, the guy went from like an F to like an A+. Like, dude, if he was going to do something that insane, like just give yourself like a C, whatever. Yeah. No, and apparently changed
other people's grades as well. So it's not just your grades that change. You got to be.
So he goes, Miss, what are you going to do about it? Miss, what are you going to do about it? She says, I threw away the grades. So basically, Monday, she says, you're all going to come in, you're going to write a test, and your grade for the semester is going to be that one test and the final. That's it. All the grades you've earned until now are out the window.
I feel bad for the students who aced every single test and then didn't prepare for the last.
Yeah, yes. And there was this girl named Pina who sat right in front of me, who was a straight A student in every class. She almost fainted because literally she would have passed even if she didn't show up for the final. Okay, so her grades were just like, and I was doing really well too. I wasn't doing maybe as good as she was, but I was doing really well also. I was like in shock. So we all obviously had to spend the weekend studying 24/7 because we had this thing on my. That's what happened. That's how I felt. That's the story I remembered when I saw the final tabulated vote for Biden in the 2020 elections. Okay, and like unfortunately in this country we have some really crazy things going on, no matter what it is. If it's Trump, they'll be said, if it's Trump, they got to protest against it. But some people's level of protesting has gotten so off the wall. We covered on some insights videos, some shorts that we posted. We can put some links in our description here of nurses, one in Virginia, one in Boca Raton, Florida, all of which were saying things that are just completely unacceptable from a medical profession. One was suggesting how to basically spike the food or drinks of ICE agents with X-Lax so they get diarrhea, and then they go on and on. She even mentions a paralytic agent, which paralyzes you, like to just temporarily paralyze them so they can't go into work. That's super dangerous.
It would make for a great comedy skit if it wasn't so sad.
No, but these are like, they're being serious. And then the one in Boca is basically wishing harm onto the press secretaries. But those don't even top off this next video, just to show the level of, this is a nurse? Like, people need to take a step back and say, you know what? Whoa, take a breath. What is our country becoming with people like this guy? Here, watch this.
Remember how much power nurses have in this country? One of our own was just murdered in the street. So, we might be able to stop this somehow. Thoughts?
Good morning. Did you know most ICE agents don't wear their plates properly? I've seen it.
You know, as the type of ICU nurse I was cardiac ICU nurse. And I did a lot of time, lots of hours, holding on a groin that wouldn't stop bleeding. Let me tell you what, that femoral artery, those veins in the legs, I can't remember, it's late in my shift, okay? I know it, I'm tired. Anyway, the vasculature in the leg, it really bleeds well. Someone could bleed out very quickly from that, probably like a couple of minutes, really. I would really suggest to all the healthcare organizations out there that if you have knowingly MAGA employees, that you terminate them. They're not safe people to take care of other people. You can't have people who have open racism in the healthcare system. I mean, we already know that exists, because if you're a black woman in healthcare, you know. But if you're openly MAGA at this point and you're supporting the murdering of people, you don't deserve to be in healthcare. You should have your license removed. That's so disappointing. And I remember working with them. So annoying.
It's terrifying. Terrifying.
Listen, you're an EMT. I was an EMT, a paramedic. I worked in surgery. Never for a split second did I ever, or anyone that I work with, ever question one's politics, one's religion, one's anything. And these are patients that were taken care of, and we would do the best we could for them. It's just dumbfounded. I can't comprehend. There's some really sick people out there, and that's what's sad. And I think it's because of all the rhetoric, all the things that are being said that are just pushing things so far. Even, again, back to TMZ. This was a pure anti-Trump message. And again, don't they care about the people that were, and the little kids that were screaming and crying, that were petrified in that church? That shouldn't happen in church.
Yeah.
And it is illegal. And I don't want it happening at another church or a synagogue or even a mosque or anywhere else. Shouldn't happen. There's a time and a place for everything. So, yeah, that they're like acting like it's some horrific thing and that Trump is a dictator because we actually expect people to be civil. And then you have this guy talking about, don't be racist.
MAGA equals murdering. That's what I got from what he was saying. First of all, he was openly threatening people. I assume that he was fired because he literally recorded that it's late in my shift. He's still working. So the fact that you're doing these the fact that you're videoing something during work is one thing. The fact that you're threatening people to kill them on the job while you're on the job is pretty stark. I assume he's been fired. Probably check that out.
That's what I was. This is from Libs of TikTok that they reposted it. But I saw some posting that he had been here in Florida. They went one step further. The woman, the nurse, that's a labor and delivery nurse that was wishing harm onto, yeah, who's pregnant and going to have a baby. Of all the nurses to actually wish harm on her, an actual labor and delivery nurse, not only did she lose her job, not only did the mayor of Boca Raton call her out, but the state surgeon general actually had her nursing license suspended. She can't practice as a nurse in the state of Florida. And if you watch the videos, I did watch some of the other videos that she posted, she's going full in. Like she wants to sue and this and that, which I think she'll get nowhere because again, no one in their right mind would accept that that's what you want the nurse to be saying. You can't be out there. It's not. Again, this is the same thing as Mr. Levin and Mr. Lemon. Oh, it's free speech. You're not being arrested or fired or whatever for free speech. But if you have free, you can say whatever you want to the cop while you're being arrested for the other crime you committed, or you can be fired while using your free speech rights. That's fine, but you could be fired.
Yeah, firing someone does not infringe on their free speech rights. So you're right. A corporation is at freedom to hire and fire whoever they want. They don't have to keep you employed. Like you have the right to protest. Yes, you have the right to say whatever.
Yeah, but people don't. Yes, people don't understand that. They think that means they can do whatever, and no one can do whatever. But they fire them. Or the same thing with Charlie Kirk. People started saying all these things, and people are like, wait a minute, I don't want that person to be teaching my kids or giving care to my family members if that's the way they think about other human beings, celebrating somebody's death.
The terrifying thing is that he was basically equivocating MAGA people, anybody who supports Trump, as murderers. That's a really scary thing. It's reminiscent of what we saw in Australia maybe about a year back, where there are a bunch of Muslim nurses in Australia, and they were threatening that if they see any Jews, then they will kill those Jews. If any Jews come to the hospital, they'll kill the Jews. And they were fired as well. And we saw in the aftermath of the terror attack on Hanukkah in Australia that one of the people who was sent to the hospital for her injuries was, I think she had some remarks from some of the nurses there that were like essentially threatening. And it was just, she came from a terror attack and into the hospital, which is supposed to be a safe place. And she's threatened by terror again, essentially. It's just terrifying. It's almost ironic because in Israel, the vast majority of doctors and nurses are Arabs, and they're great doctors and they're very loyal. And it's also very interesting because in Israel, Jews and Arabs and Christians treat terrorists with the same respect as they treat the victims of the terror, which in my opinion is ridiculous. But the fact is, the doctor's principles, the doctor's ethics, there's a term for it.
Hippocratic oath.
Hippocratic oath, thank you. So they treat whoever's injured most. So even if the victim comes in from a terror attack, if that victim is less injured than the terrorist, then they will treat the terrorist first, which is crazy in my opinion. But, right, Israelis can treat terrorists above their own people, then you, mister, can treat somebody who disagrees with your politics. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, and that's the level of sickness we see in this country, unfortunately. That's the thing that I think the message regarding these anti-ICE protests and everything else, it's leading people in the direction of what this guy and these other nurses are. It's ruining it's an ideology that's taking over their professionalism and everything else.
Exactly.
And at least, like I said, now we're trying to say, look, we want some law and order, we want things to be done. Ryan Ruth, the guy who was staging himself at Trump National Golf Course in Palm Beach County back in 2024 to assassinate Trump. Yeah, he was arrested and they just sentenced him to life in prison right now. So at least that's the latest with that. So certain things are at least making some kind of sense, because very often you wonder if anything makes sense. And we hope to see us returning to American values, Judeo-Christian values, and the way the country was founded. And one of the things we posted recently on a short was this new video from this new Super Bowl commercial for Budweiser. And it's extremely patriotic. Now, I've had people that I read the post, some of the comments they made. We're still never going to go back. We're still never going to support the brand because they've gone so woke and basically turned their back on American values.
The whole Dylan Mulvaney story. Yeah, we heard that in an early episode as well.
That being said, I would still want to commend anyone that tries to go back in the right direction. And because the theme is, look, this is how far we've come. Where can we go back to do things where we actually are proud of being Americans on this 250th anniversary that's coming this July? So let's take another look at that commercial. And I want to compare that to one from just a couple of years ago. That was another patriotic commercial, because the commercial was so well done back in the day that it actually made you stop and want to watch them. It actually would make you feel proud. Let's look at this new commercial for those that haven't seen
it. Super Bowl is the advertisements.
Yeah. And so everyone puts a lot of effort into these Super Bowl ads. It's nice when they're actually putting something that's pro-American. Let's take a look at this most recent commercial that we posted as a short. Let's look at that. It's very brief, but this is the latest Budweiser commercial.
Sun's in my eyes.
It is a beautiful advertisement. Hashtag America.
And 150-year-old company.
Yeah.
That lost its way. The hope is that it's found its way, that it's not just because it's hoping to get a few customers back, that it's actually trying to understand that there's a direct connection. And there's an expectation of large corporations to hold their roots.
Yeah. I think it's almost reminiscent of the story of America, especially the way it felt under the Biden administration. And now it feels like America's commanding its place back on the world stage. And that's a good thing, in my opinion. Again, don't want American soldiers dying in foreign wars, especially not boots on the ground. But I think if America isn't the cop of the world, then China and Russia will be, as we've seen happen when there's weak leadership in America. Then other countries act up, like Iran.
And listen, I completely agree with all of that. And back in 2021, on the 20th anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attack in the United States.
Which New Yorkers apparently forgot about completely, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But Budweiser did put out a commercial in 2021 recognizing September 11th. And if you recall, let's take a look. And it just, again, speaks to how this was a true American brand. And what was happening in 2021 was that places like New York were still pretty much shut down from the pandemic.
COVID, yeah.
So if you see the footage, there's no traffic.
Everything's empty, yeah.
And do you see where the Clydesdales, where the Budweiser horses at the end, they're bowing down to
lights that shine from the.
It's called a tribute of light at Ground Zero, prior to the construction of the final memorial on the towers. And now this was the area, the sacred area, where the people had lost their lives. So Budweiser is an example of an American corporation that lost its way, just a lot of people have. The hope is that things are maybe heading in the right direction. And I think that some of these protests and everything else are an example of all the forces trying to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
They want chaos. They want chaos. And listen, if not even for some of the crazy things, I would say there's always things that can happen that disrupt our daily lives or the lives of people in our thoughts. Probably one of the biggest stories now has to do with the apparent abduction of Nancy Guthrie. So Nancy is the mom of Savannah Guthrie. She's a journalist that's the co-host of the Today Show. Her mom, I think, had lost her husband quite a long time ago. It was back, I think Savannah was like 16 years old when she lost her father. And so the mother, who's now in her 80s, is there at home, and all of a sudden she's vanished. And now they get ransom requests for Bitcoin, and it's unclear whether the ransom requests are actually real or it's some other person. One guy already got arrested for some fake ransom request. So they call one.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
They've been putting out videos to maybe buy some time, but it's just a very odd thing. She's an older woman living at home. Sadly, it doesn't appear that she had any kind of security system or cameras that had any sort of cloud storage, so they don't seem to have a lot of information. But let's take a look at the last video regarding this that they put out, and that kind of wraps up a lot of what we've been discussing here in the United States. You don't need all this other turmoil because even things like this happen.
Your message, and we understand.
Tonight, a new heart-wrenching message from Savannah Guthrie and her siblings to whomever took their mother.
We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
The new video coming after a Tucson television station received a new message claiming to be from the kidnappers. The station said it contained something the senders seem to think will prove to investigators they're the same people who sent the first note. The one that mentioned Nancy Guthrie's Apple Watch and possible damage at her home, demanded Bitcoin, and included 2 deadlines. The first deadline has come and gone. The second is in only 2 days. The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department said investigators are actively inspecting the information provided in the message for its authenticity. Investigators seen towing a car from the residence overnight following another thorough search of Nancy Guthrie's home.
If the ransom note talks about specific things in the house, like things broken, things moved, cameras removed or smashed, whatever it might be, if that's the case, they're going to go back and double check they've got to see if it matches what the bad guys are telling them.
President Trump suggesting he expects something definitive from the investigation soon.
I think we're doing very well, meaning we have some clues, I think, that are very strong, and I think we could have some answers coming up fairly soon.
But so far, investigators say they have no suspects or persons of interest in Guthrie's disappearance. Alex Stone, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Just for clarification, did the kidnappers provide any proof of life? Is there any chance that maybe she has Alzheimer's and she got lost somewhere? Maybe she got injured and people are just jumping on the bandwagon because her daughter is famous and trying to squeeze money out of them?
So she has no dementia. They were just with her the night before at a family get together or something. So there's none of that. So she's not at all like that. So that's completely ruled out. There was blood found on the front entrance area to the house. The doorbell camera was ripped out of its position and removed. There's a whole bunch of weird things. And then they received this. So they're saying, and I guess there's some things that they're seeing in the house. They're not disclosing all the information. And that's the whole thing with the proof of life, that they're saying that listen, you can make an AI video now that looks like it's real. So they have to really be able to question certain things that only she would know. And that's basically where they're at. And obviously they're trying to buy time. There's several videos they put out. And I think this is essentially what the game they're going to see. And they're saying they're willing to pay. And they want, the more communication, the better it is. But it's just one of these odd things.
How much are they requesting? How much money in Bitcoin
I
are
don't
they
know.
asking?
They're not disclosing it. There's a $50,000 reward for information leading to.
And another question: did her daughter have any controversial coverage recently? Could this motivate it somehow?
Probably not. And she's been very anti-Trump. But that being said, the Trump administration has basically said all the power of the federal government and the FBI is at their disposal because it's just a horrific thing. Why would someone just take this older woman? And so it's sad. And again, something like this should make people realize that, look, in bad times, people come together. Even if Savannah Guthrie hasn't always been the biggest Trump supporter, let's put it that way, Trump and his team is stepping up and saying, look, we're here to help and we'll do whatever is necessary. That's the way things should be. Unlike that nurse or those nurses that we talked about, unlike some of this other stuff, that's what it is. And all this being said is we don't want our country to ever deteriorate into something like some of these other countries are. And we've talked quite a bit in the past, and we did in our intro about Iran, just to put things in perspective. As we shift more into a couple of more global world-oriented stories, I want to share this piece with our audience that helps shape the understanding. When you're saying something negative, like you made some comments about the Muslim religion and so forth, even on this podcast, people need to understand where that's coming from. And I think this will help. Here, take a listen.
I grew up in a country where I was told that if you show your hair, you're going to go to jail. You will receive lashes. You will get killed like Mahsa Amini. But here, they tell me that, shh, if you talk about this, you're going to cause Islamophobia. Phobia is irrational, but believe me, my fear and the fear of millions of Iranian women in Afghanistan is rational.
Exactly. Yes, there's a...
I mean, honestly, you're not scared of Islamic laws? You're not scared of being killed?
Yes, I am.
I mean, if then there's something wrong with you.
How can you enable that?
Look,
why do they enable that?
I invite them all to go and live under Sharia laws in Iran and Afghanistan. They would say no. They always try to downplay our cause, that who causes Islamophobia. I was like, oh my God, even here in America now, someone monitoring us that we're gonna cause Islamophobia. Those who lashes us, those who kill us, those who hang us, those who, if we say that I don't wanna be Muslim anymore, they're gonna kill you. Those actually create phobia. I mean, of course not me.
Does that help maybe paint the narrative? It's not, it's like you said, it's not a phobia. Phobia is like scared of something that's irrational. You're scared of a spider, but the spider has never bothered you, and it's not.
Unless you live in Australia, then arachnophobia, fear of spiders, may be rational.
Or being scared of some non-venomous, like little snake.
Exactly. Yeah, that is exactly right to the point. And just to be very clear, there's a very clear difference between criticizing the Islamic religion, which allows men to marry young children, for example, versus criticizing Muslim people, right? Or as a whole, right? The vast majority, many Muslim people you will meet are wonderful people. They're nice, they're kind, they're friendly, they're good family people. We're not necessarily criticizing any person specifically, unless obviously they've done something worth criticizing. But the ideology may be very problematic. Very good people can hold very problematic ideologies, and I think that's
like the nurses. It's a different sort of ideology. That's a religious one,
exactly.
But yeah, the ideology paints the picture as to how they view the world.
Yeah. And Mahsa Amini is the girl in Iran who protested, who her hair was uncovered and she was beaten to death by the moral police in Iran, which caused the last round of protests before the current round, which was caused by the inflation and the weakness of the Iranian regime after the 12-day war with Israel. And it seems like that will come to culmination either this weekend is running out, so probably next weekend or the weekend after that. It seems like Trump won't back down, and the Iranians will not let go of their radicalism in any way, shape, or form, their crazy demands, including regarding nuclear and everything else. So it seems like that will come to a head. And let's just say my family members in Israel have to go to bomb shelters and prepare. Unfortunately, not everybody in Israel has bomb shelters, but here in the US, it's just going to be watching popcorn because of the immense power that the United States has and its presence and the strategy that seems like they're going to play out versus the inherent weakness of the military regime in Iran. It seems like it'll be basically pull out the popcorns. Hopefully not a single American will be harmed in the process of it. And again, we don't need any boots on the ground in Iran, very clearly, because there are tens of millions of boots on the ground that we already have in Iran, and those are the people of Iran. So that's what's really worth remembering there.
Yeah, and listen, I think this, as it unfolds, we'll obviously cover it. And we're waiting to see what the next steps are. But I think we have to remember that the world is not as it is here sometimes. Let's take a look at the Philippines, and this is what happened in one town right there. Imagine this happening in an American city. Look at this.
That's crazy footage.
And the mayor who was being targeted of that little town apparently survived.
Yeah. And even his bodyguards that were injured were non-life-threatening injuries. However, it appears that the police killed 3 of the assassins, so that's a hope for stability. There are a lot of very corrupt mayors in the Philippines. I don't know clue what the specific story is there, but it's definitely interesting footage to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, and listen, as you often mention, we have a really good following in the Philippines. We have some great audience there, and we do keep tabs on things that go on over there. This is just an example, I think, that brings to light. Just you think we got problems? You think we got problems? There's some real problems.
Exactly. I haven't seen an RPG-7 shot launched at any mayor here in the U.S. recently.
But you'd hear some of the protesters, you would think that's what's going on. And listen, we talk about what goes on around the world. Obviously, the Russian-Ukrainian war, that's been dragging on. People are dying left and right, thousands of people just aimlessly dying.
Recently, it's been announced that there are U.S. companies that have been assisting the Russians in their war against the people of Ukraine, which is very sad because obviously whether you want to support Ukraine financially or not, it is very clear who the aggressor is and which side has been aggressed upon, and the atrocities that the Russians have committed in Bucha and other places in Ukraine are just horrific as well. So there's no way of legitimizing any partnership with the Russian war machine, even if you don't want to fund the Ukrainian war, which makes sense, of course.
Yeah, we posted a short on that very situation with an important American company that's connected to a prominent individual that is circumventing U.S. sanctions and is supporting Russia. And let's put that video up here, the piece of that video. This is a reporting by Hunter Brook Media, and they do an excellent job. Here we go.
Crazy story. Russia's war in Ukraine relies on a huge American company whose CEO is the owner of the Memphis Grizzlies. And our reporting indicates that this company's gear has enabled crimes against humanity. Why do these Russian soldiers love the tech from the American company, Ubiquity?
Выражаем благодарность группе помощи народной милиции за предоставленные средства связи в виде антенн Ubiquity.
Нет связи, нет фронта. Старая военная мудрость актуальна как никогда.
It's actually simple, though it might not be legal. Ubiquity's networking equipment is cheap, effective, and suspiciously available right on the front lines of the battlefield. It's part of Ubiquity's unique and highly successful business model. High quality, easily accessible gear at affordable prices. It's a model that made its CEO a fortune so large that he became the youngest owner in the history of the NBA. But that same model has led to what we believe is tens of thousands of Ubiquity devices ending up in Russia since the start of the war in Ukraine. This wasn't supposed to happen. After Russia invaded Ukraine, the US enacted sanctions and export bans with the purpose of blocking Russian access to tools like these. But Ubiquiti relies almost exclusively on hundreds of third-party distributors for sales, rather than its own sales force. And Hunterbrook found that these third-party distributors have been supplying millions of dollars worth of prohibited Ubiquiti goods to Russia, likely in violation of US export and sanctions laws, often through third countries like Turkey or Kazakhstan, with the goal of obscuring these trade routes. And this isn't the first time Ubiquiti products ended up where they weren't supposed to. More than 10 years ago, Ubiquiti was fined for its, quote, reckless disregard by the US government. That was after Ubiquiti's products showed up in Iran. At the time, Ubiquiti just faced a $500,000 slap on the wrist. It was a first offense, and its CEO promised to shape up. It can't happen again, Robert Paris said in an interview. If it does, I'll be in a lot. It happened again. And this time, it looks much bigger. So the question is, what will the government do about it? Read the full story at hunterbrook.com/Ubiquiti. And don't tune this out because the war started years ago. People are still dying every day.
Really great coverage, I gotta say. By an independent journalist, proper coverage. Very
They did a
professional.
great job. There's another piece we have from them as well that we posted recently. And it's just crazy. We're trying to get the war to wind down, and we have companies that are profiting by essentially supplying Russia. Not a good thing.
Yeah,
And
Tucker Carlson may love Russia, but Russia is undoubtedly an American enemy. And again, the people of Russia are wonderful, but unfortunately, many of them do support the regime. The Putin regime is not wonderful in any way, shape, or purpose. And Russia as an empire, which is what they're trying to gain back, is a core threat to the United States of America. And it's worth remembering that no matter what Tucker Carlson tells us.
yeah, I haven't watched Tucker in a while. He's gone off the deep end, kind of like Candace. I don't know what's going on with these people.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But,
I know that he was gushing over the supermarkets in Moscow, thinking that that's all over Russia. But if you leave the big cities, you see how third world Russia is. But he went to the number one most beautiful supermarket in Russia, and he was just reveling in how magnificent it is and how the prices are so affordable. It's no crap. Russia's a third world country masquerading as a European one because the big cities are in Europe, but corrupt elite are extremely wealthy. But unfortunately,
Yeah,
the vast majority of the population there are poor and are getting paid a few $1,000s to die in the fields of Ukraine for really no purpose at all.
Very true. And again, all this is interconnected. We have stuff. Obviously, you see where this equipment is being shipped through in order to get to there. So
yeah, it already happened in Iran. There's a reason, like you're saying, it happened. It went through Turkey.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Turkey is not taking our side in many of world affairs and has aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood, which is very worrisome, specifically because historically, Turkey was the one secular Muslim country. They were secular by law until Erdogan came into power, and he's trying to make Turkey kind of radical Islamic again. But that's a conversation for another time.
yeah, and listen, absolutely, we've touched on that somewhat in the past, but all over the world there's issues. Right now, there's the Winter Olympics in Italy, mostly in the northern part, like Milan. Let's take a look at the streets of northern Italy. Let's take a look. Okay, so
Welcoming committee.
what was that? That was we have our anti-ICE protests. They had their equivalent over there. Those are protesters in the street firing some pretty heavy-duty fireworks at Italian police and others. So that's what was happening outside in the streets while they were having the.
And like we mentioned before in a prior episode, directly aimed fireworks can be considered a weapon because they are used as one, and they can be fairly lethal as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And look, and the opening ceremonies I can't say it wasn't impressive, but it had a very satanic themed sort of opening. If you go online and watch it, I don't know, it looked just as red as you see that looking right there. So I don't know what to make of it, but regardless,
And that was the criticism of the Paris Olympics 2 years ago was the same. They had a whole Last Supper theme.
It's
like
really
the devil
weird.
was creepy.
But again, the focus is on the athleticism. So we wish everybody from every country at the Olympics. And despite these kind of over-the-top protests, I would call them riots in the streets. Mind you, as we shift gears, go ahead.
It's worth noting that Iran is going to really struggle in this Olympic because they've assassinated at least 30 or 40 of their own Olympic champions protesting in the streets. So they've basically murdered a huge swath of their own Olympic team. It's just devastating.
Yeah, no comment. No comment. As we shift gears, and there are other countries with other kinds of problems. Let's shift to Canada briefly and look at this news story. Listen closely to try to understand what you're talking about. Canada is a different place.
I actually was physically nauseous. It was the most disturbing thing.
Erica Van Meenen and her 10-year-old son were home Friday night when her phone lit up with notifications from the security camera in her horse stables.
My horse was looking very bright-eyed and aware that something was going on, so I scrolled to the next clip. And that's when a man walks by.
Van Meenen called police. When Vernon RCMP arrived, she and an officer watched her surveillance video. It showed a man allegedly violating her horse.
Goes and gets a stool and comes back and commits the offense. And after he did that and she tried to get away from him.
RCMP declined an on-camera interview. However, in a statement, police said the suspect fled the property prior to officers arriving. A police dog search team conducted an extensive search of the property, but were unable to locate a suspect at the time.
It has never crossed my mind that somebody would actually do that. And I've never had a stranger sneak onto my property.
RCMP say a criminal offense was committed inside the horse's enclosed pen. As of Monday, a suspect has been identified. The investigation is ongoing.
I don't think he's been here before, but I can't say that with 100% certainty.
She believes Yola wasn't the only horse approached by the man.
Some other horses seemed like their blankets were tampered with as well.
The spirited, smiley horse medically okay after the incident, but
it definitely has sent a scare through the community.
Times are really tough up in Canada that got sexually assaulting horses.
Creepy. There are cultures where that is much more common and accepted and normalized than in Western cultures, which is why we should be very careful when we let in immigrants. We have to make sure that we let in people who align with our culture and not people who like to screw goats or horses or donkeys.
Yeah, all right. And yeah, listen, much of what we've been covering so far this episode, including all the extreme left nurses and all this, it really talks about sort of mental health and really some serious issues. But unfortunately, we did cover on our last episode how the largest healthcare companies in the United States aren't just healthcare companies. They sell drugs, they employ doctors. Big pharma is big medicine, is big everything.
Monopoly, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the question is clearly, is there a conflict of interest, which of course there is. But we also posted another clip we're going to share with our audience now. We posted a short on this. Is another story by Hunter Brooke, again, great reporting on really a pretty tangled web and why it's costing so much for drugs here in the United States, basically for care. Everything is interconnected. Let's take a look.
We may have found the biggest scam in healthcare, and the companies behind it are making tens of billions of dollars for doing next to nothing. Over the last year, our reporters have figured out that money meant to make your medicine cheaper has actually been flowing to what appear to be shell corporations, several of them outside of the United States. And these are fronts for some of the biggest healthcare companies in the world. If you've picked up a prescription in the United States, there is a greater than 90% chance that one of these companies was involved. So this matters to you. You probably haven't heard of Ascent or Zinc or MSR, but you've definitely heard of their parent companies, United Healthcare, CVS, Cigna.
No.
answer.
Zinc claims to provide billions of dollars worth of services, but each time we visited their headquarters, on this weekday and this one, it was empty. Across the world, tucked in the back of a shiny office building in Dublin, no one was at MSR either, according to the Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter we sent to check out the place. Where is everyone? Meanwhile, in Schaffhausen, a tax shelter outside of Zurich known for corporate secrecy, there were actually about a half dozen employees working in the office. The company called the police on our reporter. Thankfully, the police actually had a lot of problems with the American healthcare system and let us go easily. But the point is, there's 3 supposed headquarters in 3 countries belonging to what are supposed to be some of the most revenue-generating companies in the world, and essentially nobody works there. And in case you're wondering whether they just work from home, we scraped LinkedIn, job boards, we found that about 150 people work at these companies. We estimate that these companies are making about $50 million per employee. That's more than Apple and Nvidia combined, times 10. And who's paying these companies? You! Level employees had the same view. As one of them told us, quote, "They move money here and there. It looks like washing money, shifting money. It's nothing else." The scale is hard to comprehend. These are billions of dollars every year. Money that should be making your drugs cheaper, and instead is being sent to essentially empty offices around the world.
Nobody here.
So that's the scheme, and it isn't just money moving hands. It's costing people's lives. You can read our full investigation for free at hunterbrook.com/pbmgpo and spread the word. They can't keep taking our money and our lives.
So this is the next level. So it's not only that we have fraud in Minnesota and in other states, Maine and California, Texas, all these places have been identified. There's all kinds of crazy things. And now here's focus on a corporate and a legitimate parent company that has all these subsidiaries and money's just moving in circles. And at the end of the day, it seems that the only purpose is to be able to charge you, the consumer, higher costs for the medication. And we've talked about how in the United States, it's ridiculous and a joke how pharmaceuticals cost more than anywhere else. And
by a factor of 100 is ridiculous.
It's like beyond insane. And that's being addressed, and that's being, I think, at least somewhat addressed in a few different ways. The most recent, announced this past week, is the launching of the Trump RX website, where consumers can buy drugs directly so that they aren't stuck in the mix of dealing with the insurance companies and all the different layers that are in between the insurance companies and the drug manufacturers.
Like the PBMs, like we discussed last week. Yeah, it's just horrible.
So this may not be the ultimate final solution, but it is another path. Anything that provides access is the most important thing. Ultimately, I just think it's important for us to keep in mind as we go on, there's no shortage of corruption. It's one thing that there be some glitch in the system. It's another one. There's an intentional circumvention to be able to just make profit at the expense of patients or people.
Like the reporter very correctly said, it's not just about the money. This is literally costing people's lives. People in America are terrified of the costs of healthcare and avoid going to healthcare more than any other country in the world because the costs are so ridiculous because of these companies acting with these dirty shenanigans like they've been doing.
Yeah, and there's no need for it. They can still make lots of profit and be fair about it. But look, let's take a look in a different realm. Look, it's not all negative. We do want to talk about some positive things. And ultimately, tech sector is one we like talking about, and space travel. There's a big date today, which has been postponed. This was going to be the launch of Artemis 2.
ULA, who was supposed to launch it and failed costly.
There was a hydrogen leak, I believe. So they did the right thing in delaying it. But let's take a look at just a little bit of the Artemis mission, and we'll be covering it more once the mission actually takes flight, which will probably now be sometime in March at least. But let's take a look.
A half century since the last Apollo mission sent American astronauts to the moon. That could be changing as soon as next week if the Artemis 2 mission is successful. I love this shot, by the way. This would be the second flight of the new space launch system and the first crewed spacecraft to head near the moon since 1972. The mission has already faced some lengthy delays. In fact, the latest coming after this weekend's winter storm canceled a full dress rehearsal today. That is now scheduled for Monday. After 15 years in the making, the rocket could lift off in just a matter of days. The 4-person crew heading into space include NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Koch, along with Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen. Glover will become the first person of color, Koch the first woman, and Hansen the first non-American to travel around the moon.
And when I look at the future, when we talk about what is our legacy, I don't want to look 5 years or 10 years in the future. I want to look 100 or 200 years in the future. And honestly, this is where I thought this might land wrong. I hope we're forgotten.
100%.
If we are forgotten, then Artemis has been successful. We have humans on Mars. We have humans out on the moons of Saturn. We are expanding in the solar system. We have robotic precursor missions going out. We already have spacecraft outside of our solar system. Maybe we've invented something that we never even dreamed of, and maybe we inspired some kid somewhere, and maybe that's our footnote.
I mean, how exciting is that? This 10-day voyage will consist of a day-long trip into high Earth orbit, then 4 days of travel to the moon. That includes a 4,700-mile flyby of the lunar surface and a 4-day return back to Earth. There are 15 different launch windows for Artemis. 2 of them are between now and the end of April.
Exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. And I really hope that it goes smoothly and they're very successful. Kudos to the astronauts. And that was a very correct approach. His approach there is basically we want to be a footnote in history because we want so much more great things to come after us that we're just a small point in the grander story. Yeah, there's a saying, we are midgets, but we stand on top of giants. So that's basically we want to be the generation that enabled future generations to do truly amazing things and not so far out in the future as well. So that's really the hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And technology is obviously accelerating with AI. And one of the things we always talk about has to do with the interaction with the physical world. So robotics.
Yeah.
And that's been spreading much quicker than people thought.
Yeah, it's about to happen. It's about to whip us across the face really quickly. Because until now, technology was very much centered around the computer and devices we held in our hand or stared at. And now tech is really starting to enter the real world, and that's going to make a hell of a difference about so many different things, specifically humanoid robots.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of that that's actually in action right now. Here we go.
Fox Business Alert: New York City's nurses' strike has now entered its 11th day as roughly 15,000 nurses seek higher salaries of more than $200,000 a year. But the request for higher pay could hit a snag, could have an unintended consequence if more hospitals turn to robots. Beverly Hills Cedars-Sinai Medical Center uses Diligent Robotics' Moxie robot. These robots are deployed in more than 25 hospitals nationwide to help with logistical tasks like delivering medications, supplies, lab specimens so that clinical staff can spend more time on patient care. And it just so happens that this week, Diligent has been acquired by food delivery robotics firm Serve Robotics. Joining me now in a Fox Business exclusive, Serve Robotics co-founder and CEO Ali Kashani. Ali, this is a significant expansion for Serve, well beyond your sidewalk robots. Tell us exactly what drove this deal.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I mean, we have always known that what we are creating, the technology behind our robots, is to enable robots that can navigate between humans in any complex environment, whether it's a sidewalk or in this case, a hospital. You mentioned the nursing shortage and the challenges there. These are little assistant robots that can actually help nurses tend to patients more because they don't have to be walking around hallways, grabbing medications and supplies, because a robot can do that mundane task. So it was a very natural fit for us.
Yeah, let's be very clear. We love our nurses. They work their tails off. Nobody
Absolutely.
can replace bedside manner that they offer. I just want to make that clear, and you're not saying that it is, but
100%.
Specifically, what were the challenges of convincing hospitals like Cedars-Sinai to take these robots?
I mean, look, hospitals are a challenging environment. You have, multiple floors and places where you have access control, where you have to, show a badge before you can, or scan a badge before you can pass through. And then if you get things wrong, if you collide with things, those are things that you got to get really comfortable with. And then on top of that is privacy and data. So a lot of work that the diligent team, the founding team over there has done over almost 10 years to bring the robots to 25 restaurants with more than 100 robots, and we are hoping we can help them get to help more nurses in more hospitals.
So the deal is
Exciting. I was recently in Austin and I saw some of these sort of robotics who typically deliver food. And for some reason, it always seems like they're clueless. In this last video, it's like stuck and thinking what to do. So they definitely have a long way to go. Like we've mentioned in some focuses in the past, is that it's really about the technology of a robot understanding the 3D environment. That's really what's most critical. And for that, some tech companies like Tesla specifically have already a system that can navigate the 3D world, which is new to a lot of these other companies. But what's most critical is humanoids walking around the human world, because they can navigate just like humans can. And they can be much more capable as opposed to these delivery robots. Because what we've been seeing essentially is just delivery robots, even in the hospital, is really just a delivery robot with a box that drives and opens up. The excitement will come with the dexterity of hands, specifically really complex hands like humans do, that enable us to do a huge array of tasks. But yeah, that's the focus.
Yeah, absolutely. Back 20 years ago, probably longer than that, when I worked in the hospital, we actually had a robot that would go between the pharmacy and the different departments delivering things. It didn't have any arms, but it looked what you see there. So it's not all that new, but they've added arms.
Yeah, like in Asian restaurants, you get sometimes the drinks are brought on some of those robots, the same exact robots, really.
And you saw China with the couple of those clips were in China with the directing traffic, and then the larger street-worthy delivery robots. The last one, the one that you said looked confused, that's from robotics. I filmed that, and actually that was in Fort Lauderdale. So
really?
It was sitting there thinking for a while, and eventually I guess got an order. But I wanted to include the piece where the guy ran in front of it so that you could see.
Yeah, that was interesting because it was Baptist Health as opposed to food delivery as well, the one you
so there's different promoters. So that's basically who's advertising or whatever on the robot. But it's delivering. That was doing an Uber Eats delivery on the little screen. It actually tells you. And with that being said, listen, robotics come a long way. It's the dead of winter for a lot of people. Wouldn't you wish a robot could just take care of all the snow?
Of course.
Maybe
yeah,
it
that's
can.
useful. Yeah, we've seen lawn mowing robots, like an extension of the house cleaning robots. So it's a no-brainer for them to clean the snow as well.
Let's take a look.
New Jersey this weekend. One homeowner in Morris County decided to let a robot handle the cleanup while he stayed inside nice and warm. And now the video of his autonomous snowblower is going viral, racking up millions of views. Check that out. Here's Sandra Bookman.
All my friends say it'll never work.
Skeptics weren't hard to find, especially given the size of his driveway.
I have a big driveway, over 6,000 square feet. Over 300 feet long, up an incline. So this was a challenging driveway. If it could do this driveway, it can do most driveways, I think.
Instead of firing up a traditional snowblower this weekend, Tom Milani of Chester, New Jersey, put an autonomous one to the test. But he says it didn't come easy.
It takes a while to set them up. I'll tell you right now, this isn't for people that just want to buy something, take it out of the box and use it. I have probably 30 hours invested in assembling, programming it, walking it around my driveway.
Once programmed, the machine works on its own, starting when the snow does.
You turn it on when it starts snowing, and you just let it run continuously.
It ran through the night, in fact, returning to its charging dock as needed.
I had it running all night, and when I woke up this morning, my driveway's done.
Milani says this is a glimpse of how technology is changing everyday chores.
Well, that's how robotics and AI helps us live better lives. So who wants to be outside clearing your driveways?
And he believes this is just the beginning.
This is first gen, and like any tech, you know, it only gets bigger, better, and less expensive as time goes on. So I 100% can see these things eventually being used at municipalities, much larger scale than what mine is.
Sandra Bookman, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Yeah, shout out to Tom Malogany. I've been a longtime follower of State of Charge, and he appears on a bunch of other podcasts as well as Tesla, like Tesla Time News and stuff like that. He does good reporting on EV and tech and stuff like that.
So for those living up north, there is hope. There is hope. And now let's
There's nothing more dreadful than clearing your driveway, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think sometimes humans need some help. We like ending each episode with something amusing. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's only amusing or almost depressing to look at, but humans sometimes aren't as smart as we think. Maybe that's a good way to start winding down this episode. Let's take a look at, I don't know how to describe it. Take a look and see if you can figure it out.
Oh. Oh no, now she want to argue with the man about this. Girl, you get a cart. What is you talking about? How you supposed to carry? Oh no, she not really about to start arguing with this man. Oh no, she is really out here starting war with this man. Yep, I feel so bad.
Yeah, it should be said that there are some of those carts that actually have handles that go all the way up and
That's what she was saying, but clearly that's not what that is.
It was the case. It was like the holder. It's hysterical.
If we make robots in our image, we better just watch out. And the question is, are we smart? Can we outsmart a robot is the question. We think we're smarter than them. Should we worry about robots taking over? I don't know. I think we're still doing okay for now here. Let's see how we're doing when it's man versus robot.
You are trespassing. Leave the premises immediately.
I just sat down. Can I just sit here for a minute? I'm tired. Let's take a break.
You are trespassing. Leave the premises immediately.
That is legitimately hysterical.
There's some hope for humans. We're still maybe able to outwit them, don't you think?
Although robots can very easily have cameras in the back of their heads, we can't. So we're screwed in that department.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And listen, I know we were talking about how people have become so dependent on technology. That's part of the problem. People are just gotten a little bit too reliant on AI and let's just see how far. People don't realize this is what we're becoming.
Let's take a look.
Hey, how's it going? A cashier has asked me how it's going. How do I respond?
Keep it short and light. Try something like
Good, and you?
He said good and you. What do I say to that?
perhaps offer to assist him with something like,
Are you looking for something I can help with?
What items am I collecting?
the items you should collect depend on your needs.
What are my needs?
Needs can vary, but the most common are health, food, shelter, and companionship.
Do you have companionship?
What aisle is companionship in?
Companionship is never in the same aisle twice. Some days it's with the bread, soft and warm. If you can't find it, ask the person stocking the shelves. Half the time they're looking for it too. Fred, ask Fred.
Fred? Where?
Where is Fred?
I'm not sure where Fred is. Could you provide more details or context?
A man has asked me about details and context for the whereabouts of a man named Fred who can help me find companionship, which is an item I need for my collection. What should I say?
A person asking for the whereabouts of a Fred who can help them find companionship as an item for a collection could be a coded way of discussing human trafficking.
Oh my God, should I call the police?
Yes.
How?
Dial 911.
Please, help me. Help me.
No problem. Can you please provide me with the address at which you're experiencing this emergency?
What's the address?
What type of address? A business address? An email address?
Do you need my email address?
Do I need...
Yeah, legit funny. Well done.
Then when they said they have to upgrade because their chat GPT that they're asking all the questions to is run out of.
I think that what we should learn from that is not to offload our thinking to ChatGPT. Sometimes you just got to use the old noggin we've got up top.
Absolutely. And listen, we talked a lot about immigration, and every country has its own immigration issues, and they handle it differently. That makes sense. And the requirements may be different in different countries. This might be what you'd expect if you went, say, to Germany for an event. No, welcome to you. People are traveling now and decide they want to stop in Germany. Just be prepared.
Before granting you entry to Germany, you must first answer these simple questions. What are the two most followed sports here in Germany?
Rules and regulations.
Correct. What is the national symbol of Germany?
The towel on the deck chair?
Correct. When a German says they have a little bit of English, what do they mean?
That they speak English better than you.
Yeah. What major international incident that caused destruction across Europe do German people not wish to talk about?
Brexit.
Yeah. Which renowned musical genius of German heritage is still celebrated the world over?
David Hasselhoff.
Ja, the Hoff.
Yeah.
What is the gross national product of Germany?
Sauerkraut. Gross.
Yeah. The Autobahn is famous for having no limit to what?
Volkswagen CO2 emissions.
Correct. A train departs Stuttgart at 12:38 p.m. traveling at 140 kilometers per hour, carrying 67 passengers. 14 alight at Mannheim and 3 get on. 22 board at Frankfurt and 4 get off. At what time does it arrive in Berlin?
On time.
Correct. When a German says they are tired and they wish to go home, what do they really mean?
That they're tired and they wish to go home.
Correct. What is Germany's most efficient, reliable and durable machine?
Angela Merkel.
Yeah. Correct. What German action taken in 1916 plunged the Western world into a dark depression?
Introducing daylight savings errors.
Correct. Would you consider the traditional German clothing of lederhosen to be silly or sexy?
Both, probably.
Correct. What is proudly free here in Deutschland?
The trains. Yeah.
Nein, the trains are not free. It's the college education that is free.
Yeah.
Nice, you must pay for the trains.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, we do. will. We are. We have them. And we will.
And finally, the most difficult question of all. What is the capital of Germany?
Berlin. Yeah.
Nein, the answer is G. G for Germany is the capital. It's just a joke to lighten the mood at the end of the test. And you say we Germans don't have a sense of humor, but you...
Yeah.
Oh, you should see your faces, Gerhard. I told you it would work. Oh, my God. Willkommen! Welcome to Germany.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That was good.
Yeah, wow.
I have more jokes if you'd like to
No,
hear.
no, we gotta catch a train.
One about a chicken that is trying to cross over a road, but there are several obstacles in his way.
Yeah, those guys are funny. I've seen another clip of theirs. They do.
Yeah, listen, you have to at least have some sense of humor, whether you like it or not. But there's one thing I've never really had a sense of humor about, and that's handicapped parking. You ever notice how people just abuse that parking privilege?
Always, yeah.
You see a car in the handicapped parking, the person comes out, they're like in incredible shape, they're going over to the gym, doing backflips as they go over to the gym, and yet they want to take the handicapped parking because it's the closest. In Miami-Dade County, they're actually revoking tons of these permits. They're going and trying to find permits that are not properly issued and so forth. And when I was growing up, I had my best friend, his stepdad wound up becoming paralyzed and being a quadriplegic. And I got to see firsthand that not having parking when you need it's a real problem. So it's nice to see that maybe sometimes people are taking things into their own hands, trying to resolve the issue. One final video for the episode. Let's take a look.
Everybody is parked in a handicap parking spot. Yeah, I've been dealing with people like you for 20 years. I'm tired of it.
He's megaphoning into his face. I love Drew, man.
There's van accessibility. That doesn't look like a van to me. It's a Batmobile.
Come here. Hey, sorry.
You
can
so
get
embarrassed. Oh my God, he's so embarrassed.
Hey, no. Come
They're
on.
chasing him. They're chasing him.
It's my birthday. It's my birthday wish for you to stop doing this. Holy shit. You can't do anything right. If you pay the fine, we'll let you go.
Hey, what fine?
All I wanted was a fucking cheeseburger.
If I said jump in the water, would you?
I can't jump. Hurry up, dude.
Oh, it's your birthday?
Yeah, it's my birthday. And my wish was to stop people like you. The only way to get out of that, give me a sincere apology.
You gonna say it? You gonna say it? Are you gonna say it? I'll say it.
On your knees. I know it's not the first time on your knees, buddy. 3, 2, 1. I apologize.
You better apologize. That's Drew.
There.
Drew Davis has cerebral palsy, and he was told that he would get nowhere in life and could do nothing. Now he owns the Crippling Company. That's what he calls it, the Crippling Company. And he makes crippling hot sauce. If you want any kind of hot sauce, look up crippling hot sauce. He basically tells it as it is and goes around. He's actually, I think, now traveling the country, trying to raise awareness and promoting, essentially getting people that may have disabilities to understand that shouldn't stop them from doing anything. All that being said, I think we've done one thing, and that's we've gotten to the end of episode 27. We appreciate everyone that's stuck with it, and we'll prepare for the next one.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much for repeating customers and everybody who's been back to watch us again and again. We really appreciate your time. And please let us know what you think down in the comments.
We'll read them. We'll get back to you. In the meantime, let's get ready for the next episode. Look out for other content. And
let's have a wonderful week.
Bye, everyone. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Bye, Joe.